Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We've got you for the next 4 hours. Talk some Royals baseball. We'll talk some Kansas City Chiefs football. We'll talk some NFL contracts, PR issues, Velasquez being Babe Ruth. We'll talk with Craig Stout coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, 11:30 actually. We'll talk with him, KC Sports Network, kcsn.substack.com, where you can find the work from the KC Laboratory Podcast Boys. And we'll talk about what the future of that is for Craig Stout. Coming up in the 11 o'clock hour. We typically would play Sports or Leisure today at 1 o'clock, but the Chiefs are wrapping up week 2 of Phase 3, Practice 3 today, and Andy Reid and the assistant coaches will be going to the podium. So we will take that live and hear it live, the press conferences with Andy Reid and the assistant coaches. I like Assistant Coach Day. I think you get some fun information from some of them. Not all the assistant coaches are going to be, great, but there are some that are really good and really interesting to listen to. Dave Merritt's awesome. Joe Colin's awesome. Love listening to those guys. Just talk ball. Just talk sports. And so we'll weigh in listen in to the press conferences coming up in the 1 o'clock hour with the Kansas City Chiefs. 913-912-4810. Royals in action this afternoon. They will take on the Twins, looking for a split of the series. They sit 2-4 on the season against Minnesota. They get the win last night. A nice bounce-back win for the Royals. They have now had 3 different 3-game skids. They have not allowed that to get to a 4th game. Last night, Seth Lugo on the mound, an early run, and concerns / maybe, nerves of, is the offense going to respond? Is the offense going to give Seth Lugo some run support? Are they going to score enough to win? Are we going to be talking about a 4-game skid, a 4-game losing streak for the Royals, and being 1-5 against the Twins this year? Not the case. They're 2-4. And they get the win last night. Today was scheduled to be Brady Singer versus Chris Paddock. Brady Singer has been scratched from the start today with an illness. So Daniel Lynch will make a spot start today for Brady Singer. The corresponding move is Carlos Hernandez has been optioned to AAA to make room for Daniel Lynch coming up for Brady Singer and his illness not going today against Chris Paddock. So Daniel Lynch can hopefully come close to what he did in his spot start. He hasn't given up a run this year in 7 innings, only given up a couple of hits, 2 different outings for Daniel Lynch, one out of the bullpen and one as a starter. But that, start, he went 5 innings and gave up a couple of hits, no earned runs. So if he can come anywhere close to that, not that's expecting a lot, but anywhere close to that, and give the Royals an opportunity to win today to split the series before heading back home to take on the Padres for 3 in an interesting schedule quirk where they go on this road trip, they come back for 3, and then they head back out on the road.
Yeah.
Yet again next week. But then it starts with, the Guardians after they take on the Padres this weekend. And starting on Monday, we had talked about, with this 4-game series with the Twins. Well, we talked about it on Tuesday, but starting on Monday, 23 of the next 90 games for the Royals was going to be against the Twins and the Guardians. And they started that on Monday. They're 1-2 in that stretch. That's the importance of today's game, obviously, with the divisional game and getting back to playing some good baseball. They break out the bats last night. Salvi almost has 2 home runs. Velasquez does have 2 home runs.
Negative reinforcement. He hurt our
Telling you, dude,
ZOUs.
We'll talk about that, man.
Yeah.
We'll talk about what he's done since we told him that they told the Royals that they needed to option him to AAA. We'll discuss some of those things. But Velasquez has 2 home runs. Bobby Witt with a crucial hit at the to get things started with a ground ball that did enough. Got to the outfield. I just love the second baseman running after it. It looked like a little league ground ball where the player it's a slow roller, but the player can't cut it off, so they're just like running next to it almost. It was a very familiar scene. I saw that last night. I'm like, oh, I know that. I've seen that before.
Julian, you play 8U, or 9U, don't you?
I've seen that before. Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, that was the other night. I saw that. That's right. But enough to get the run home for Kyle Isbell and the Royals get the win last night. So let's start there. We'll also get into some NFL news because, as I said, contract news. Jalen Waddle has now signed a new contract, an extension with the Miami Dolphins. He's going to be making $28.25 per year, $76 million guaranteed, 3 years, $84.75 million for Jalen Waddle. If you're doing the math at home, that is $58.25 million annually between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle with their wide receivers, which goes to show how much they believe in Tua, which we'll get into. And I think strategies moving forward for this Chiefs organization. But let's start with the Royals. They snapped a 3-game skid. Seth Lugo continues his historic start. I mean, I think they did last night. Couple good defensive plays. That was nice to see. Nick Lofton do what he had to do. Zerpa doing something weird. Just gonna barehand it.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Just glove is,
optional.
It's here. I could use it, but anybody can catch the ball with their glove.
Whenever you can break whatever makes the most money, whatever makes your money, whenever you can fracture that.
What would Wagon Wheel Mike in 1884 use?
Wagon Wheel Wilson.
Sorry, Wagon Wheel Wilson use. He would use his hand.
Yeah, well, his hand was the glove. That's all they had. They didn't have gloves back then. They actually just wrapped a piece of leather around their hands just to break the.
You can wrap leather around your hand.
Well, just like a leather strip.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Wrap it around just to break some of the pain a little bit, and then that eventually grew into gloves. But Nick Lofton tosses the ball to Zerpa, and then also is the backup, and then also went to go run after it. So the one blemish there, and if the Royals lose, if they would have lost last night based on a bad defensive play, we would have had the conversation today about, okay, this team is really struggling. They are not playing some good ball. They're really struggling right now, and they, are making these errors in inopportune times. But it didn't cost them. They win the game, and the offense does more than enough. And Seth Lugo, I don't know at what point in the season where we said, okay, this isn't a fluke. He's just off to a hot start. He's faced off against some really bad teams. And the good teams are his worst starts of the season. We're 12 starts in at this point. He's made 12 starts this year, and the man's got a sub-2 ERA, leading the American League in wins, ERA, and innings is Seth Lugo, and goes out there and I don't know if you would call it laboring through, but the mark of what is a dominant / potential ace is watching the guy on the mound look like he's sort of laboring through and going 6 innings and giving up 1 earned run.
And not against the White Sox.
Right.
Against a team that's 30-25.
Yeah. And the Twins, and they've got some good hitters on their team. Correa's good. Kepler's batting .300 this year. Jeffers, we talked about him maybe being the third, catcher at the All-Star game this year with Salvi and Rushman and maybe Jeffers. And so you've got those guys over there on the other side who are, good players. Trevor Larnach's good player.
Willie Castro, Jose
That's right.
Miranda.
Yeah.
I mean, they got some dudes.
Yeah, and he goes out there, throws 100 pitches, goes 6 innings, 9 base runners total, 1 earned run, still strikes out 5.
What's hilarious is if he would have came out after the 5th inning and given up 1 run, his ERA would have rose. Is that math correct?
Yeah,
That's math correct.
I mean, he got another inning. So
that's my point.
Yeah.
You know how hilarious that is that if a guy goes 5 and gives up 1 run when he's struggling,
his ERA is worse than what it was when he started.
That's how good Seth Lugo has been.
I see what you're saying with that, yeah.
My point is that's how good Seth Lugo has been this year.
Because, I mean, just in general, if you pitch 1 more inning and don't give up any runs, your ERA does lower. But I see what you're talking about.
As far as going into the game.
The game, what his ERA was, had he gone 5 innings, 1 earned run, his ERA would have been higher coming out of the game than it was going in, which is absurd because this late in the season, 5 innings, 1 earned run should be lowering your ERA. Almost everybody in baseball, the ERA would be lower if you went 5 innings and gave up only 1 earned run. Do you know what the most wins last year for a Royals pitcher was?
I'll go 12. No, whoa, that's too high.
Yeah, stop.
I'll go.
Backtrack a little bit.
I'll go 7.
7 wins. Dylan, you want to throw a dart as to how many
Yeah.
wins the leader for the Royals had last year?
I'll go 6.
It was 8. Seth Lugo now has 9. It's not June. And Seth Lugo has 9 wins. Now, pitcher wins. How much do they matter? Not much. But he is out there going 6, 7 innings, giving up 1 earned run. You're giving yourself a pretty good chance of winning the game. If you're going 5 innings and giving up 4 and you've got 5 wins, there's some smoke and mirrors to it. Was it Redmond or Chris George?
Mark Redmond was the All-Star.
I think it was Redmond that had like 10 wins at the All-Star break with a 6 ERA. And it was just absurd. Like finding way, like he was getting a win each time he went out because they were winning like 9-6, like 10-5, like things like they were just slugging their way to wins for him. And he had a terrible ERA, but he was winning games. And it's like, oh, pitcher wins.
His All-Star year, he was 11-10 with a 5.71 ERA. That screams All-Star.
I think most of those wins came before the All-Star break. Like, really, I think there was a huge regression to the mean of this guy is giving up a lot of runs and winning games. For instance, if Brady Singer was pitching today before he got sick, Brady Singer has a, 2.4 ERA and a 1.1 whip. Chris Paddock for the Twins has a 4.4 ERA and a 1.4 whip. They're both 4-2. But the 9 wins aren't typically smoke and mirrors except for a very bright, shining, flashing outlier like the All-Star season of Mark Redmond. But what Seth Lugo's doing is showing that the Royals have an ace on this staff. It doesn't have to be named Cole Reagans. They have an ace on the staff, and it's Seth Lugo. It's perception entering a season that dictates and frames so much of your thought process throughout the year. Because if you took Cole Reagans and gave him the exact numbers of Seth Lugo,
I'd say, why are his strikeouts so low?
I mean, I would say, strikeouts are nice, but the guy's going out there and if Cole Reagans was 9-1 with a 1.7 ERA right now and a 1.1 whip, he might be the leader in the AL Cy Young.
Yeah.
Not the 5th.
He would be the leader
Not the 6th.
far.
Yeah, not the 6th betting favorite in Seth Lugo. Because the beginning of the season, Cole Reagans was one of the top 2 or 3 betting favorites to win the American League Cy Young. It's perception in mind and also stuff. But we act like Seth Lugo doesn't have, maybe we don't act, but like some sort of a thought that Seth Lugo doesn't have great stuff. Like him locking up Max Kepler on that 2-seamer that was, like Brady Singer does that, and people are like, oh my God, what a great pitch by Brady Singer. He starts it at the left-handed batter, and it works back in for a strike. It's one of the main things Brady Singer has.
That better word for Brady.
Right. In his tool belt, that's one of the main things Brady Singer has, is throwing it right at the lefty, and then it breaks back in across the plate, and they get locked up, and it's like, damn, that's a strike. That's one of 9 pitches for Lugo. Like, I know we like the stuff with, spin rate, but Lugo also has the spin rate for a swing and miss that he had on the curve 2 starts ago when it was the highest and second highest spin rate for a curve in RPMs for a curve on a swing and miss this season. And it was the same game in the 1st inning and the 6th inning. Wasn't back-to-back pitches. So somehow not throwing 100
Yep, that's
and
it.
17 inches of run like we saw Paul Skeens yesterday. Yeah. Like they spent more time on SportsCenter last night showing the highlights of Paul Skeens than they did Seth Lugo. Because of the hype and the excitement and watching the stuff. Because he's got amazing stuff. I mean, Paul Skeens is just blessed with, God came down and blessed his right arm and his ability to pitch and his touch around the strike zone. All right, so he is incredibly blessed. He's worked his butt off, so it's not like, for lack of that, but there has to be some sort of a starting point for being able to, I can work as hard as I want. I ain't never going to be throwing like Paul Skeens. All right.
Don't sell yourself short.
Okay,
Come on
you're
now.
right. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to get to work. Thank you. Thank you for believing in me.
Someone has to.
43 years old,
Rookie of the year.
And,
there we
well,
go.
and then I'll break him down with negative reinforcement. This is how it works.
Well, even the crazy Henry Rosenbagger was only throwing 100, and that thing was straight as an arrow.
Carlos Hernandez throws 100 miles an hour, and
It's straight as an arrow.
It's brutal.
It's Rowan Gardner is what he is. He's Rowan Gardner. But what Seth Lugo was doing is an ace. Yeah. It is an ace. Like we watch Cole Reagans, and we talk about, all right, the Royals have their ace on the mound when Cole Reagans is there. The Royals had their ace on the mound last night in Seth Lugo. Because that's what he's pitching as, is an ace of a staff. Why don't we view him that way? When what he did last year is carried over into this year, and what you're actually seeing is a trend of a guy for years that said, I want to be a starting pitcher.
Sure.
My stuff will translate to a starter. And teams said, no, you're a 2 or 3 inning reliever. You've got a lot of different pitches, but your stuff won't translate to 5. Second and third time through the order, you can't do it. You're a 2 or 3 inning pitcher, 1 time through the order. You don't have the stuff to be the back end, but you're a valuable piece. Until the Padres gave him a chance last year, and he proved he can do it, and the Royals then believed he could do it by giving him 2 years, and all he's done is had a trajectory up of showing him as a starter, getting better and better and better.
I think the answer is strikeouts. I think that's what it comes down to. It's unfair, but that's what it is in today's day and age. Greg Maddux was labeled as an ace, but strikeouts I don't think were viewed as important, right? Also, Greg Maddux might be the outlier, so I'm not trying to cherry pick here. You look in the NL, look at Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez is a great guy to compare Seth Lugo to. We have before a guy who had been a little up and down for a couple years, not a full-time starter. All of a sudden, he gets an opportunity this year. It's like a 1.8-something ERA, 1.85. Doesn't get a ton of strikeouts. He throws 93 as well. I don't know how many people are saying he's the ace of the Phillies. They probably are now, but no one was saying that when he was starting the year this season.
But even when they've got Nola and they've got
Aaron Nola and was it Zach Wheeler?
Wheeler, yes, that's who I was thinking of. Wheeler, who's got, I think at this point, 250 strikeouts this year.
Yeah, it's insane.
I think he's got like 85. Like, it's absurd what he's doing. But those are guys that coming into the season, reputation preceded their outings.
Cole Reagans was a little bit of the outlier, as in he's not done this before. Cole Reagans had a great half year where he was ace stuff, right? He's the outlier of all of a sudden he was tabbed the ace in top 5 in Cy Young. It kind of came out of nowhere, right? If the Rangers thought that they were getting that, would they have made the trade? I mean, probably because they won a World Series out of it, but how much was Aroldis Chapman really making a difference there? They're probably sitting here going, yeah, we would have kept Cole Reagans. We'll use him in the bullpen as Aroldis Chapman. But he somewhat was a shooting star, and all of a sudden the entirety of Major League Baseball realized it right away, and they decided to crown him an ace. Seth Lugo is the ace. The only other guy I can think of who I think was ace status, who didn't throw super hard, was actually Zach Greinke when he left. When Zach Greinke left and he had that 2.16 ERA for the Dodgers, Kershaw won the Cy Young that year. It was hard to say that he wasn't the best pitcher for the Dodgers that year. And then he went to Arizona. He was the ace for Arizona, but typically you are a strikeout pitcher. That's what I think the majority of fans, and quite frankly, I think even to an extent some media, will label as an ace. And Seth Lugo is just not a strikeout pitcher. And guess what? That's fine.
But also, like, I'm going to look it up real quick. Because he's got 66 strikeouts, which is 12 away from being top 10 in Major League Baseball. Chris Sale has 78.
I'm talking strikeout per 9.
I know. I know. I'm
it's 7.6.
I'm with you.
Reagan's is 11.1.
But what I want to do is I want to go back to April 21st. So let's go to and yes, I'll be cherry picking here. But
I do love cherries. It is cherry season, I believe.
Hey, let's pick them. You know, and let's just go to.
You a Rainier guy or a Sweet Red?
I'm going to take your word for it. Let's go to standard here. let's go ahead and just simply get the Ks per.
While you're doing that, you
Yes, go
are
ahead.
absolutely right. It is all about velocity, and that is why he is not getting the love. Like when you think about the Braves' big three pitchers, Maddox is always the third named. It's Glavine, Smoltz, Maddox. And it's because those guys, it's natural. Like it's the quarterbacks. It's
So-
the Tom Brady thing. Everyone was getting these quarterbacks that could throw 80 yards, and then
right.
Tom Brady was winning all these Super Bowls, just checking down and letting his defense win.
Yeah, that was, with Tom Brady, yeah, he's system quarterback, right? I mean, he's not
Right.
he's not throwing the ball, 100. Peyton
Lugo
Manning
didn't
is
strike anyone
different.
out. Yeah.
Seth Lugo, in his first 5 starts of the season, had 14 strikeouts. In his first 5 starts of the year, 14 strikeouts. Since then, he's had 7 starts, and in those 7 starts, he's 6th in Major League Baseball in strikeouts. So the overall season numbers in Ks per 9 and strikeouts aren't great. But since he had the start where he wasn't striking really anybody out, because he had 6 innings, 2 Ks, 5 innings, 1 strikeout, but then 7 innings, 9, 7 innings, 8, 6 innings, 5, 8 innings, 12, 5 2/3, 10, Tampa Bay, 7 innings, 3, and then 6 innings, 5 Ks against the Twins yesterday. Like some of that, you can say, all right, so if you're going to look at the beginning of the season when he wasn't striking anybody out, well, then if you're going to take those out, then take away the 9, the 10, and the 12 games where he had those strikeouts. Right, but I think my point is he's not a guy that's just going to go out there and throw pus and get ground balls constantly. He's a guy that has games where 3 games in a row, he had a total of 27 Ks in 3 games. I mean, that's 9 strikeouts in roughly 6 innings.
It just looks different than the
It looks
majority
different.
of aces. And guess what? I don't give a hoot nor a holler. I mean, if you're
Hoot or a holler.
if you're going to throw up a
Yeah.
1.72
I'm
ERA,
with
I
you,
don't
man.
care what you're doing.
I'm with you. And he can be called an ace. He can be called a number 2. He can be called a number 3. I don't care. But I love that he's called upon when the Royals are needing a win or whatever it is. Every 5 days, doesn't matter. When he's on the mound, I feel fantastic about the Royals' chances to win. And they did it last night. All they got to do is give him a little run support, and he's going out there and dealing. And he didn't have his best stuff and goes out there 6 innings and 9 base runners in 6 innings, gives up only 1 earned run.
What's wrong with working smarter? Takes 3 strikes or 3 pitches to get a strikeout. Seth Lugo's doing it in 1 pitch.
Yeah.
Getting ground balls and fly balls.
And you know what? Let's play the clip from Seth Lugo. This is him post-game. It's about a minute and a half, answering a few questions by his locker in the clubhouse. And to that point, I'll let him speak for it when he was talking about an elevated pitch count and trying to catch up on pitch count to stay in the game longer.
No, I'd say I had battle. They got a bunch of good hitters in the lineup, so I couldn't really get to the part where I could just cruise. They made me work out there, and they put together a lot of good bats. So being able to get 6 after that and the W, it feels great.
How important was it to get that 7-pitch inning in the third after it seems like 4 runs for you?
That was huge. After the second, I knew I'd thrown a lot of pitches in the first 2, but after all those runs, I only had 1 foot up mind. That was just get early contact and get through the inning as fast as possible.
And how much did it kind of battle? You say you mentioned a battle, but that 12 pitch at bat to Kepler, do you think that kind of hindered maybe going out there for 1 more?
Yeah, as soon as I was done, I said, Kepler cost me another inning. But no, it was a good at bat. It's easy to lose a guy there trying to be too fine and get a chase and end up walking him. So just staying locked in and challenging him in the zone, that was huge for me.
You're also locked in when there are runners on base, especially. I think striking out Miranda was it on 3 pitches when they had a couple on and it was still early. What's the key to your mentality when you get guys on like that?
For me, I just feel like I always have options. If I can locate pitches, whether it's fastball or secondary pitch, if I can put it in a general area where I want, it gives me options after that. So, I feel like I never corner myself and always have different options when those situations come up.
So he had 37 pitches in the first 2 innings. And Jalen Thompson asked him about that, hey, you had 37 pitches the first 2 innings. Did the strategy change then after that? And he said of the 3rd inning, and he was asking about the 7-pitch 3rd inning. Yeah. It's like at that point, I knew my pitch count was elevated, so I was trying to throw early stuff just to get weak contact, get ground outs, and get 3 quick outs. And he got 3 up, 3 down on 7 pitches. So isn't that sort of an ace? of adjusting. Like, my job is to be out here as long as I can. My job is to stay on the mound and pitch. I've got 37 pitches through 2 innings. That ain't going to last very long. I'm going to be done after 5 if I don't catch back up somewhere. And in order to catch back up, I probably need to throw some pitches that could be hit, but I'm going to pitch to contact a little bit more in this inning because I need to get through this pretty quickly and save some pitches. And he does that, and he talks about it after the game that, yeah, that was the strategy in that inning. And that was what, Correa, Kepler, and Kirilloff were the 3 guys that he went up against and was like, I got to catch up in pitch count right here against 2, 3, 4. So here I go.
Well, he's a pitcher, not a thrower. I mean, it's never been more true than with Seth Lugo. He understands the game so well. He needs a nickname like the Professor. We need to give him some rec specs or something and really just dive into that nickname.
Can be on the and one too, or name the Professor.
It could be. Yeah. Skip to my Lou. Who skipped to my Lou in this instance? I don't know. Skip to my Lugo. There we go.
Damn, dude,
He's
that
both.
was so good. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
But I mean, again, just what Seth Lugo does, it looks different than traditional aces, but he has a game plan. When he needs a strikeout, he can get a strikeout. If he needs a fly ball, again, I hate using Greg Maddux because Greg Maddux is, again, somewhat of an outlier, but I love those videos of Maddux going, you want a fly ball to the warning track? And he's retired by now. He's like 50 years old, and he gets fly balls to the warning track. You want a ground ball? He makes the hitter hit a ground ball. That is Seth Lugo.
Well, you mentioned it. It's funny. OptaStats last night tweeted out the Seth Lugo of the Royals is the second pitcher in the modern era to win each of his first 6 road starts of a season while allowing 0 or 1 run in each of them. The other's Greg Maddux. So it's funny. You mentioned that.
Not that far off.
I was like, man, I saw a stat last night that somebody tweeted out about Lugo and Greg Maddux. It wasn't like, he's Greg Maddux, but it's like, it just so happens to be that it's the first one since, Greg Maddux. And Royals Seth Lugo has a 1.72 ERA through 12 starts, lowest by any Royals player to start a stint with the club, second only to Zach Greinke's 2009 season, a 1.55 ERA for any season in club history through the first 12 starts of the season. And he also is the first pitcher to win at least 8 of his first 11 starts to start a career with the Royals. So not necessarily in his career, but the first 11 starts of his tenure with the Royals to win 8 games. That is also the most in Royals history, is Seth Lugo. They have him for another year, and then, options after that. But they believed in him. And he's proving their belief worthwhile, and he's not slowing down. He's a trajectory that is continuing to get better since the Padres finally let him be a starter that for years he has said, I want to be a starter. I think I can be a starter. Most pitchers do want to be a starter.
Well, he's 34 right now.
Yeah.
I'm just go ahead and say
Mason,
you're prime for catchers and pitchers. Apparently, you're 34.
Mason Miller wants to be a starter, and the A's have to figure out, do they want to keep him in the back of the bullpen, or can they get more out of him by going 5 or 6 innings with Mason Miller? Because he wants to be a starter. He's got great stuff, and we know at minimum he can be one of the best back-end bullpen guys dominant that we've seen. Maybe this is early on in terms of like stuff and just blowing it. Maybe ever, because Rivero was amazing that it was just one pitch and you couldn't figure it out, and he's breaking bats and just always getting the job done.
And Trevor Hoffman with his changeup.
Yes,
Don't forget Trevor Hoffman.
You love Hoffy.
Or John Franco with the screwball.
But like, if you're the A's, what are you playing for? Wouldn't you just say, hey, you know what? Let's see if Mason Miller could, maybe not in the middle of the season. You don't want to take him for a guy that was one inning guy and then turn him into a starter, but
sure.
When are they winning next?
Dude, they're going to trade him. It's the A's.
Well,
they'll make a brutal trade.
Are you going
to
get more out of him and his stuff by going 6 innings or 1 inning back of the bullpen guy? I mean, it depends on who you're looking for.
Yeah.
But if he can translate some of that to go in 6 innings, and we're seeing what Paul Skeens is doing, and he wants to do it, and he's been that guy before, we'll see. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and then, just move Seth Lugo to the back of the bullpen with his stuff. He's got 9 pitches. He can throw a different pitch every single time and get through a full inning and not throw one pitch, the same pitch, and be a closer. Why wouldn't you do that? All these closers throwing, I got one pitch, I got two pitches. Seth Lugo's like, I'm going to go a full inning and not throw the same pitch. I would actually wonder if he would do that. He threw 7 pitches in the third inning, so he can do that.
Hear me out. Immaculate inning. 3 strikeouts on 9 pitches, but he throws 1 of the 9. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, goes through the order.
9 pitches, 3 strikeouts, all different pitches. That's the most immaculate inning.
Yeah.
God, I mean, now he has to do it. That's the only thing left for him to say he's an ace. Until he does that, he's not an ace.
You hear me, Seth?
Lou, go do it. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. So, Seth Lugo's final 8 starts last year as a Padre, as a starter. Final 8 starts. He's got 12 starts this year. 20 starts. So in Seth Lugo's last 20 starts, he has a 1.98 ERA.
That'll play.
So he finished the season with the Padres with a, well, let me see what that is. That'd be 13 earned runs of 48 and 2/3, 2.4. So he finished his last 8 starts with the Padres with a 2.4 ERA, and he's backed that up with his first 12 starts this year of a 1.7. So 20 starts, 127 innings for Seth Lugo. That's 6 1/3 innings, pitching into the 7th. 20 straight starts, pitching into the 7th for 20 starts and a sub-2 ERA. That's what Seth Lugo has done since ending August last year into September and now starting the season this year for the Royals. That's the trajectory of what he's done as now a full-time starter.
Who would have thought the Mets would mess this up?
I mean, who would have thought? I mean, nobody could have seen that coming.
I mean, this in
Not
fairness,
even Jorge Lopez.
Ooh, we could talk about that.
Yeah, we can.
I think there's a little reunion.
No, I don't think there's a reunion coming.
I'm for a little reunion.
He wouldn't be playing on the worst effing team in baseball.
Or be the worst teammate.
Or the worst teammate.
It was kind of a combo. I
don't think it was a combo. He said worst team. I think he tried to clear it up in combo and say, no, worst teammate on the worst team.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
I will say, though, did that remind you of Jose Guillen? Because that reminded me of Jose Guillen when Jose Guillen was with the Royals and then Jorge Lopez with the Mets.
Well, Jose Guillen went after the fans when they booed him.
Yeah, it's
like,
true, too.
Lopez was going after the organization, and the umpires after giving up the rocket to what? Was it Ohtani that he gave up the rocket to? After he gives up that ball that's crushed, then all of a sudden he gets into it with a third base umpire, gets ejected from the game, throws his glove into the stands if you didn't see it over the net, and then says he's playing for the worst effing team in baseball. And
He's not wrong, though.
30 minutes later, he gets DFA'd.
Yeah, good for him.
So designated for assignment. I don't think the Royals need a reunion with Jorge Lopez.
You know who would have drilled Buxton?
Lopez.
That guy.
He might have drilled him because he lost control of the pitch.
It
might not have been on purpose.
Hey, I'm just saying.
It's
I'm
not
just
exactly-
saying. Don't you want a little? We said until you have a fight, you're not
That's
the
right.
2014, 2015 Royals.
I agree. They need a
you
brawl.
You need a fighter.
They need a brawl, man.
Bring in Lopez. He'll fight.
He's not exactly Pedro. When Pedro said he's never hit somebody on accident, talking about his control. And anytime somebody throws at it, and he's like, I've never accidentally hit a batter. If I hit a batter, that's what I was trying to do. Was hit that guy. You know what? I actually believe him. Out of all people, with his stuff and control, I believe him. I think probably the same thing for, like, we were talking about, like Greg Maddux. Guys that had just, ability to put it wherever they wanted with each and every pitch. Like, oh, that one got away. No, it didn't. You think it got away, but it didn't. Go take your base. Don't ever do it again. What? Whatever you did. Whatever you did, don't do it while I'm on the mound.
You know what you've done.
We both know what you did, actually. So just make sure you don't do it again.
By the way, I'm facetious. I don't actually want Jorge Lopez.
I think you do. Something about it.
They already have a Jorge Lopez at home. It's Carlos Hernandez.
That's right. Why go out for milk when you got the cow at home?
Yeah.
You've already got Nelson Velasquez. Why go get a Jorge Lopez? Or Carlos Hernandez. Did I say Hernandez?
They're different players. Yeah.
Did I say Hernandez or Velasquez?
You said Velasquez.
Okay, because I was literally
wrong.
getting ready to talk about Velasquez.
I was talking about pitchers who threw hard and weren't very good.
So Velasquez, we had a conversation on May 14th with Les Norman here in the studio. And at that point, we were talking about the corner outfielders and the DH, Renfroe, MJ, and Velasquez. And my issue at that point was they had Velasquez in right field. And he's not good enough to play in the outfield. So if he's going to be on the team, the way he was swinging the bat, you're losing a lot if you've got him in right field and he's not hitting. because he had the lumbering over to get a ground ball that turned out to be a double.
Good word.
Yeah, he had the single turned or the first to third on a single to right field because he had nothing behind the throw.
Because he Jalen waddled over there.
That's right. Well, this was different. This was just a single to right field that he went and fielded, and the guy went first to third because when he came up throwing, you saw it had a it had a.
It was a two-a throw.
It had a
nothing behind it.
You know,
Nothing
it had a
behind
parachute behind it. It came out of his arm and it just then slowed down for some reason. It wasn't Tatis or
Change up.
Renfroe or
It's a
something
change
like
up.
that. Yes, it wasn't Adolis Garcia or anything that you see from some right fielders like, oh, hey, that guy's got a pretty good arm. But since that conversation about Velazquez and probably time to send him down, he's got an option. You know, figure something out. He's played 11 games, and by listening to our show and challenging us and saying, okay, if you believe this, I'll show you, because whatever motivation that was going on wasn't working for him. So listening to the show, in that time in 11 games now, he's batting .220, but he is getting on base at .290, but he's slugging over .600.
That'll play.
He's OPSing at .899 with an on base of .289.
Talk about boomer bust. Like, it's not even the 3 true outcomes. It's the 2 true outcomes for him. It's either an out or a home run. There's no walks involved.
Well, he's got 4 walks, which is crazy because he's, the batting average is so low. So that's why even the on-base percentage is sitting at .290. He's got 9 hits in the 11 games. 6 of them are extra base hits. 5 of them home runs. 5 home runs in his last 9 hits in 11 games. 11 RBIs, 4 walks, 9 strikeouts. So in those at-bats, in those plate appearances, he's hitting a home run, walking minimally, striking out. But he's got 11 RBIs in the 11 games. He's got a double. I mean, if he hits like this, I don't care about the 220, honestly.
No.
If he's hitting like this to where every 11 games he's going to hit 5 home runs, and I don't think he's going to pace for 70 in a season. Something tells me I don't think he's going to do that.
Take, Jason.
I'm gonna throw a dart here and say, but what I mean is, every few games he runs into a 2 or 3 run home run, can win you a game.
Yeah.
Can win you a game. And with this lineup,
They need power.
they need power, but they just need production from different spots. They were getting nothing from him, MJ, and Hunter Renfroe. On that day, we were having the conversation about something has to happen. And at least he has responded. Because in those same 11 games, MJ Melendez is batting .121. And he's getting on base at .194. And he's slugging .182. MJ Melendez in that same 11-game stretch where we're talking about Velazquez getting hot and getting the home run stroke back, MJ Melendez is OPSing at .376. He's OPSing at .376. He's OPSing 20 points lower than Salvi's on-base
I was
percentage.
just about to say that, yeah.
He's OPSing that low. I mean, it's absurd. And we gave the negative reinforcement to MJ that day, and he didn't respond. So I don't know what to do.
Is he a positive reinforcement guy? Because I don't want to be
I think he's had
positive with
enough
him.
positive reinforcement throughout the years. Come on, let's get it together.
I will
Let's do
say
this, man.
negative reinforcement
Yay.
works. Because we ripped on Nelson. See, anyone who listens,
Right.
Especially
Nelly.
I'm just pointing this out. It's not that we don't like you. It's that we know this gets you going.
Yeah.
It revs the engine.
Yeah, we're just trying to get you rolling.
We just
man.
revved up Nelly. That's
Yeah,
all we're
it.
doing.
Yeah, we're just trying to help him out, man. Get a couple of home runs. And, we didn't have to do that for Salvi because, Salvi's a positive reinforcement guy.
Yeah, he's a positive guy.
Absolutely.
Velasquez, we didn't know his style, but now we know it's negative reinforcement. We know this.
Bobby Witt wanted to prove to the show that he was not a third baseman, that he was one of the best shortstops in baseball. Because I said that he was the best third baseman on the team. And they should move him to third
It's a
base.
bad take, Jason.
Before last year, after he was the worst shortstop in all of baseball his rookie year.
I love how people forget that.
Yeah, he was
I love
so
how people
bad.
forget that.
He was so bad defensively. Not only, but also that's a credit to Bobby Witt.
I mean, it's incredible.
He was so bad defensively, and he immediately went in the offseason and started from scratch. Rebuilt everything.
I always say we can talk about his offensive emergence all we want, but I think just as important, if not more impressive, is his ability to go from, again, the worst defensive shortstop in baseball to maybe the best. At least this year, he has been one of, if not the best defensive shortstops in baseball.
Yep, and he did it in an offseason where he said, no, I'm going to focus every day on fixing whatever is going on, and got his personal coach, infield coach, and started from the basics and just went back to the beginning on how to field ground balls. And by the way, the humility for the second overall pick, bonus baby, who finished, top 5 in Rookie of the Year in baseball, that says, I got to go back to the beginning of playing shortstop. Like, I want to start from the beginning and work on everything to rebuild this to be the best defensive shortstop in baseball. My offense will be there. I don't need to do anything with the swing. That's going to happen. But defense was atrocious, and I can't let that happen again. What's going on? Credit to him, because he could have gone in the offseason, it'll be fine. I'll figure it out. I'm top 5 Rookie of the Year. You kidding me? Got millions of dollars. What do I? No, I'm fine. I'm going to hit a lot, and I'll be a shortstop. Not every shortstop has to be a Gold Glove winner. I'm good.
How lucky are we in Kansas City to have not only maybe the two most talented players in their respective sports, but two players who are great in the community and who actually care and want to get better.
Who are driven to be great.
Driven to be great.
Driven to be the best at their sport.
Yep.
And will put in entire off seasons to be the best at their sport.
It's insane.
And, one's got a couple of MVPs, and I think the other is going to have at least one MVP in his career. He's that good. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. Jason Anderson here from my friends over at Guarantee. All right, wrapping up this hour. We'll come back on the other side of the break, and we will talk some NFL football. We'll talk about the latest with Chiefs offseason, Chiefs PR getting overtime. Is that hazard pay? Overtime pay for the PR team. What it means to be the draw in the NFL. We see it with the schedule, but we also see it with these things as well. And the ever-inflating market for wide receivers continues to go up. Back-to-back days, we see a contract for a wide receiver that is approaching the Tyreek Hill contract that reset the market, in which now A.J. Brown's contract has reset the market, but Jalen Waddle got paid today.
Holmes.com.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Zone. Jason Anderson, Sterling Holmes, and Dylan Michaels. 3 more hours to go. We will talk with Craig Stout coming up a half hour from now, about 11:30 or so. We'll talk some Chiefs football with him. They are out there on the practice field 20 minutes from now. They'll be out there starting at 11:20. And then 1 o'clock, we will hear from 6 different coaches for the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid will not talk today, but we will hear from the coordinators, Tobe, Spags, and Nagy. And then we'll hear from tight ends coach Tom Melvin, O-line coach Andy Heck, and defensive backs coach Dave Merritt. So at least we get Dave Merritt. We don't get Joe Cullen, but at least we get Dave Merritt.
And Andy Heck, I'm intrigued
Andy
to
Heck's
see
good,
if he has
yep.
any insight. I mean, you're not
How
going to get
high
much.
is he on Wanya?
Yeah, you're not going to get.
What?
You won't get much.
What do you mean? I'm just wondering if he's,
Yeah,
if he's excited about what he's doing.
Some song references. I get it.
Is he going to blow smoke around Wanya Morris, or is he going to give us the legit, issues that are going on and how close he is to winning that competition,
Stay off the damn weed.
I don't know. I just hope that when it comes to the competition that Andy Heck is more blunt than just trying to be vague about everything. Okay?
I wish he was in Philly for Motown Philly. That'd be every single thing. Hey, Wanye, are you back again?
Yeah. By the way, as I said at the time, I don't care what they were doing and getting arrested for that. Don't care. Hey,
go
know the
across the
laws.
state line.
Yeah. You drive across the state line, it's all good. Over here, it's like
I
like
forgot
They
about
mixed
it.
it up.
Actually,
They were
Yeah.
They thought they were supposed to gamble in Missouri.
That's exactly
Start in
right.
Kansas. It's a classic.
They went to
mix-up.
Missouri to a sports book, and then drove back to Kansas with some weed, and they're like, I got mixed. I'm not from here.
Right.
All right? I didn't know. I'm just figuring out east, west, north, south.
State line can be confusing. I thought
Yeah.
Missouri was on the west.
Right. I was driving south, and my nautical compass got mixed up. And I thought, oh, wait, if I go left, then I can gamble. Not realizing I was already
Took a
driving
Ralph.
south.
He took a Ralph. Instead of a Louis, he took a Ralph. Yeah.
Yep, you got to take a Louis or a Ralph, depending on if you're going north or south.
I forgot
man.
about that whole
Oh,
devil's lettuce situation.
You forgot about that, really? It's weird because a lot of people around the NFL have not forgotten about that. So, Chiefs PR staff is put to work some more. The latest with the Chiefs in another issue in the offseason involves Isaiah Buggs. Now, the most common reaction I saw to this story about Chiefs defensive lineman Isaiah Buggs was, who? That's the most common reaction. And then also disgust of any allegations of animal cruelty, animal abuse. No matter the animal. Any of those allegations, they are going to have an emotional reaction from people. It is not to the level that we've seen in the past of Michael Vick, according to the allegations, obviously, but it is an accusation, misdemeanor of animal cruelty. With someone that I think a good portion of Chiefs fans never even heard of. The guy was signed to the practice squad in January, and then in February was signed to a futures contract. So he's been a part of the Chiefs for about 5 minutes.
It was when basically Detroit. Remember
Yeah,
early in the year, game one actually, everyone was the talk was why isn't Isaiah Buggs playing against the Chiefs?
Mm-hmm.
And then he really didn't play for Detroit, and then he was released. The Chiefs picked him up. I had high hopes for him, but again, we'll see how this plays out because he's come out and said his piece already. There's some confusing aspects of it, but you don't mess with dogs, man. You don't mess.
He
with dogs.
He hadn't played in a game with the Chiefs. He signed, just after January this year, and was on the practice squad. And then after the season was over, signed to a reserved futures contract. So I think the reaction of who
He's wearing a wristwatch in the pictures that they're showing of him holding the Super Bowl trophy.
Right.
Like he wasn't on the field.
exactly yes
I don't think he was active.
Yeah, no, he didn't appear in a game, and so he's been a practice squad guy. So if there were an example to be made, this would be the easier example to be made. This story is confusing for a couple of different reasons. One of the things that I did not expect to have happen was, in the defense of himself with his agent, that we would be discussing a hookah lounge.
Yeah.
And whether or not Tuscaloosa police want him to voluntarily surrender the license for his hookah lounge business, and they are now using this as publicity to then draw him to giving up his business, according to Isaiah Buggs and his attorney,
Xavier Barbadette.
Xavier. The statement from his attorney: Isaiah vehemently denies the truthfulness of the allegations and charges asserted against him today. Under no by the way, the charges are 2 different dogs were left unattended for 10 days on Isaiah Buggs' property that he was renting.
Without food and water.
Yes, exactly. Without food and water. One in a cage, no access to food and water. He continues, the attorney. Under no circumstances does Mr. Buggs condone the mistreatment of any animal. The dogs at issue did not belong to him, and he was unaware they remained at the property in question. Furthermore, we believe the city of Tuscaloosa's decision to file the charges today is part of a concerted effort by the city of Tuscaloosa and its police department to besmirch Mr. Buggs' name and reputation as part of an ongoing subversive campaign to force the close of his local business, King's Hookah Lounge. These efforts are not new, as Mr. Buggs was arrested at his business on misdemeanor charges on 2 separate occasions in the past 2 months. But each time, no public record was made of these arrests. Rather, the city used the threat of pursuing and publicizing both the allegations filed today and these arrests as leverage against Mr. Buggs by offering to drop and not pursue them in exchange for his voluntary surrender of his business license. Mr. Buggs declined the city's offer, and he has serious concern about the city's and police department's motivation for deciding to target his business, which he plans to bring to light as part of his defense of the allegations and charges filed against him and his reputation for his business. Parts of the story get really convoluted here. I have no idea what took place. Talked about this before. Anytime something like this comes up. But what is confusing is that the property that they found the dogs was property that Isaiah Buggs was renting, but the owner, the landlord, said that Isaiah Buggs owed him $1,300 in rent, and he had vacated the premises in mid-March. The police allege that these dogs were left unattended for 10 days on the property when they found them. And Isaiah Buggs is countering and saying, those aren't my animals. Those aren't my dogs. I don't live there anymore. As evidenced by the landlord trying to get $1,300 from me in rent in what it's owed, or what he alleges or says that I owe,
Sure,
when I vacated the premises in mid-March. There's some weird things with this whole part of it. The issue for Isaiah Buggs and the Chiefs is that this is number 5 along the way for PR conversations, PR issues, national discussions around the Chiefs being top story in Bottom Line, in headlines. If you go to the major sports sites, top one, Chiefs Isaiah Buggs charged with misdemeanor animal cruelty, 2 different dogs. All right, that's a headline popping, news right there, because it's that you've got the animal cruelty part of it, and you've got the Chiefs part of it, which is certainly a factor. But it's Rashee Rice and the speed racing. It's Rashee Rice and what may or may not have taken place in the Dallas, nightclub. It's Harrison Butker, whether agree or disagree, the comments that became national debate. Wanya and Godric in getting arrested for marijuana possession and now Isaiah Buggs. It's the trend and the totality of it that at some point the Chiefs just simply go, well, sorry, I don't know what happened, but we're going to release you.
Nothing pulls higher in America than dogs. I mean, seriously. Name
nobody's for animal cruelty.
Yeah, like name your favorite president.
I shouldn't say that. Most people with a heart.
Name your favorite president of all time. That dude did not pull higher than dogs. Dogs are clear-cut the America's favorite. You don't mess with dogs. I'm intrigued to see this plays out because, I mean, if he was not there, if he actually was vacated in March and those aren't his dogs and someone else has been, I guess it would be either the owner who was renting the property out to Buggs or it was a squatter.
So here's more information. The petition says that on March 28th, the police department received information of the two dogs being left on the back porch. So if he vacated on March 19th, and these were found on March 28th, and they claimed 10 days they were there.
So this is not now. This is 2 months ago, basically.
Yeah, that's news that the Alabama, the Patch.com Tuscaloosa News updated this morning.
Well, then that would
as March 28th. Is when the petition was filed for Isaiah Buggs, who says that he was not on the property anymore. He left on March 19th.
I don't know of many places where dogs come with the property.
Yeah.
Not chickens.
They also had to put down one of the dogs.
That's awful.
So if he had anything to do with this, then get his ass out of town.
Yeah. We'll let the legal system play out and wait for more information. But
Right.
I don't mess with anyone who messes with dogs. I'm out, man.
Yeah. The issue, though, I mean, there are a number of different issues here, but it's an offseason that has continued to mount.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice being an idiot. Rashee Rice maybe putting himself in a position that, probably shouldn't have done.
All quiet on the southern front there, huh?
Right. Wanya being in the wrong state with weed. Harrison Butker in the comments that became national debate. And then Isaiah Buggs. The difference between all of those, which is fascinating, is what got the most conversation is one where no laws were broken. Nary a law was broken with Harrison Butker.
Ah, good point.
That got the most conversation. That got the most debate is his views
it's still
religiously, domestically, religiously, whatever the views are. No laws were broken with that. But that was the biggest, story headline. Rashee Rice, that was like a 24 to 48 hour news cycle. And then people moved on. Around here, we didn't because it's Rashee Rice. But a lot of people moved on to the next thing. The Harrison Butker thing continued and percolated and stayed around with his views. And it got to the Chiefs where Patrick Mahomes weighed in, Andy Reid weighed in, that other people then are having to weigh in on that. Andy Reid's weighed in on Rashee Rice a couple of times. Patrick Mahomes has had to weigh in on Rashee Rice. And Butker. And Andy Reid weighing in on, Wanya Morris. And, the possession. And this just next one in line. It's a part of being the draw in the NFL, too. Because if these things happened with, what's the worst team?
Panthers.
So if these things happened with the Panthers, it would be on the headlines. But would it immediately get clicked of Panthers
practice squad, defensive tackle.
Panthers offensive lineman arrested for marijuana possession. Who cares? Panthers practice squad defensive lineman arrested 2 misdemeanor counts of animal cruelty. You probably read it because, like you say, that sparks an emotional,
I get angry.
Response to those things. Panthers having off-season issues that are mounting. You probably move on. Read it. But you don't connect all of them together and go, see, Chiefs are being the Chiefs. This is what the Chiefs have always been. This is, who they are. And now, look, I'm just so tired of the Chiefs. Is there a team that's easier to root against than the Chiefs?
The answer is always the Raiders, by the way.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Right. Every team goes through issues throughout a season. There is no team that has full, especially when you're talking about 90-man rosters right now. With rosters for OTAs and training camp, practice squad, and, your contracted guys, you're talking about 90 players on a roster. So teams go through these things. This is adding up because you've got back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and they're self-inflicted. It's Rashee Rice racing. It's him being in a position to where he can be accused of luring somebody to a bar and then sucker punching them. It's driving around with weed in a state that doesn't allow you to do that. It's written comments in a speech that are controversial. It's maybe having 2 dogs left unattended for 10 days and vacating the premise. It's a lot of self-inflicted things that are going on that add up to where it feels like, boy, this offseason has been a rough one for the Chiefs.
You know what I want to do? I want to do a segment every day where it's Chiefs who do good. Like Derek Nottie. Derek Nottie deserves more credit for what he's done with saving animals and everything he's done with dogs. Like that Derek Nottie, we should do a Derek Nottie segment. We should do me and the Mahomies. Like 15 of the Mahomies, sorry.
I think it's a great point. And everybody that's a part of the media takes place in how things are disseminated. And I think a good portion of some of the criticism that's there for the media is overblown. And I think a good portion is self-inflicted by the media that had brought it on themselves. The way that we cover stories or talk about stories, especially political, something gets passed in Congress, it's either a win or a loss, instead of this is what it means for, constituents or citizens. It's this is passed, Republicans won, Democrats lost. This is passed, Democrats won, Republicans lost. Like, it's a game. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody had to win, somebody had to lose when legislation is passed. Like, that's the framing by the media frames it that way.
Yeah.
And that's consciously done because that's what gets the people reading. Instead of just saying this piece of legislation was passed. Yeah, but who was in favor of it?
Yeah.
And who was against it? Oh, wait, the team I root for was in favor of it? Oh, hell yeah, that's awesome. Oh, the team I root for was not in favor of it? Well, this is bad. This is terrible. So you present it that way. But also in the sports, because what you're talking about there is a great point. Isaiah Buggs in the last 24 hours, and probably the next 24 hours as this thing, if more information comes out, is going to get way more attention than Derek Nottie's story that he saved, 500?
Yeah.
What was the number? I might be exaggerating with the number, but it was something astronomical in which he was doing that and saving dogs.
More than 500 dogs.
More than 500 dogs that a good portion of them would have been put down. Instead, he's adopting them, donating them, making sure they are not killed. That story got 5 minutes. Honestly, got 5 minutes on this show, too. And that's why I say, everybody takes part of it. Everybody has a hand in it. And it's it's a little bit of the Chris Rock stand-up when it was, I take care of my kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids. What, do you want a cookie? Like, hey, look, this guy did good. Well, that's cool. People are supposed to have a heart. You're supposed to do, sort of expected in some way, shape, or form. Well, but the people that do, now this guy, what the hell is wrong with him? Because societal norms say that this is completely out of the ordinary. Like, people don't do this to pets, to dogs, to whoever. They don't do that. People don't drive 120 miles an hour speeding on the highway in a busy, time of day. They don't do that. A lot of people drive around weed and possession, whatever. That's why not that big of a deal, at least to me. A lot of people hold the same beliefs as Harrison Butker. A lot of people don't. But the good parts of it are almost accepted as 15 of my homies. That's awesome. He makes a lot of money. He should probably do that. The, 87 and running. Makes a lot of money. Probably should do that. Taylor Swift donating money with, Travis Kelce. They make a lot of money. Probably should do that anyway. Derek Nottie. That's really awesome, man. That's really cool. You know what? He's a special place in my heart for Derek Nottie doing that. But let's show and talk about how pissed off we are about Isaiah Buggs.
Yeah.
And it's a guy that I mean, honestly, the most reaction that we saw was who? Who is this guy? And that's an easy fix for the Chiefs. Did you have a part in this at all? And we're moving on. The guy spent 5 minutes with the Chiefs. He's most known for this now. I know nothing about what Isaiah Buggs did except for this. And being on a practice squad during the playoffs. And as Dylan pointed out, a great point, the picture of him holding the Super Bowl trophy, which is the picture used in all of these different publications, him holding the Super Bowl trophy like he's wearing a watch. You know, street clothes, holding the Super Bowl trophy because he didn't play in that. And it ain't exactly like Clyde Edwards-Helaire against the Eagles where he was just a healthy scratch and he was a guy that would have been playing. I think it's an easy solve for the Chiefs. But it's a collection of things that have mounted that they do need to go a couple of weeks without making headlines.
Neil Farrell is higher on the depth chart than him.
Hell, Will Ferrell is probably higher on the depth chart than him. You know?
Definitely.
I mean, any Ferrell. Ferrell Cat's higher on the depth chart than
Will
him.
Smith even, because Will Smith could do the Deacon Jones, the smack him aside the head.
Yeah. You know?
I don't know if you remember that quote from Deacon Jones. It was that was his move, by the way, until they outlawed
absolutely,
it.
until they outlawed it.
But one of my favorite Deacon Jones.
Did he say something about Will Smith?
No, but the whole Will Smith smacking.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Chris Rock. I
then
got it now.
Deacon
I've
Jones
connected it.
Smack him.
I've connected it now. I got you. Mind melding. We're good.
In the break, I'll go with Dylan and find this at some point. We can play it in the show because it's I have to do it justice. But again, I'm going to give Derek Nottie his due here.
Yes. Saved
over $500 in the past 4 years, a majority of which could have fallen into the at-risk category, which means they were candidates for euthanasia. He got other people involved, including Rachel. Rachel Ray gave away a year's worth of her line of dog food to each of the dogs that he has saved.
That's awesome.
There's a beer company, and it actually doesn't say the beer company, which is
good,
weird.
good.
A beer company inspired by Nottie's story donated $100,000 towards dog adoptions.
Okay, so they didn't just give dogs alcohol?
No, they were not giving dogs alcohol, but yeah,
interesting
Derek Nottie,
connection.
absolute badass.
Kudos to Derek Nottie for being somebody that has the means and then used those means for something good.
Yeah.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will talk with Craig Stout on the other side of the break. KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast. More Zone right after this. All right, hanging out on this Thursday edition of The Zone. We will hear from the Chiefs coming up at 1 o'clock. It's assistant coaching day. Coordinators and assistants will be talking today at the podium coming up at 1. Dave Tobe, Steve Spagnuolo, Matt Nagy, Tom Melvin, tight ends coach, Andy Heck, offensive line coach, and Dave Merritt, defensive backs coach. So some interesting positional battles and new players to talk about. One of those new players is Xavier Worthy, who is not participating in OTAs today, is just wearing his jersey, but some sweats, no helmet, and standing on the sideline while OTAs are going on. The same scene from last Wednesday on the third day of OTAs is the scene today with Xavier Worthy standing on the sideline. Now, last week, Patrick Mahomes talked and said precautionary, and if they were to play a game, Xavier Worthy would be good enough to play, would be healthy enough to play. It's a week later. I don't know if it's something new or just continuing the precaution for Xavier Worthy. We talk with Craig Stout now, KC Sports Network, kcsn.substack.com, and the KC Laboratory Podcast. Craig, welcome into the show. How are you, sir?
I am doing wonderfully, Jason. I am also very excited for Assistant Day. This is one of my favorite ones.
I love it.
Like when we get to hear from them because it's a little more unfiltered. We don't get the same coach speak from all these guys. So, it's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I wish we had some Joe Colin in our lives today, just with the accent and talking. I listen to him talk football all the time. If I had a day with Spags, Colin, and Dave Merritt, I'm good. That's a great day. That's a good day. That's a heck of a day, as Jimmy V once said. So before we start talking some Chiefs, we start with this. I mentioned, Craig Stout, KC Sports Network, kcsn.substack.com, and the KC Laboratory Podcast. Announcement, news, last night for Craig Stout and the KC Laboratory Podcast. So, brother man, what's going on with the KC Laboratory Podcast and you, Craig?
KC Laboratory Podcast is going to keep going. Everything is great. I am in a really great spot. Made a lot of changes over the last year. One of them, moving out here to Colorado, starting a new gig and all of that. It's going exceedingly well. Unfortunately, that means I'm going to have a little less time in the evenings, and especially with my kids growing up and everything like that. I am taking a step back from KC Laboratory Podcast. Still going to be doing stuff with those guys all the time, all the charity work and everything like that. I'm going to continue to be as involved as possible with KCSN, but it means that my writing, my podcasting, all of the content stuff that I'm putting out there is going to be significantly less frequent. So said a little bit of a goodbye yesterday on all that stuff. Really going to miss getting to see those guys' faces and talk football with them and talk football with everybody, basically 3, 4, 5 times a week. But yeah, no, still going to be around, not going anywhere, not moving on to anything else. Just need a little more free time.
Okay. It sucks. I was sad to see that announcement. But you know what? Happy for you that things are going well, and certainly understand needing some of the free time at night when you've got kids and raising a family and all of that stuff. Because, look, you guys have grown so much that the responsibilities start to become a little bit more. And, Craig, the expectation becomes more like, hold on, where's the Laboratory Podcast? Well, what's going on? Well, we had, this was going on with Matt, and Ken had to do this, and Craig was, well, no, I need my Laboratory Podcast, damn it. So that's a good thing, but also there's a responsibility that comes along with that, and you've got other responsibilities too. So sad to see that being the case, but glad that you'll still be around in some way, shape, or form with Chiefs media and breaking some things down, because we learned from you, one of the reasons why we have you on.
Yeah, I mean, and I have always been so appreciative, and the Chiefs fans and Chiefs Kingdom have been so welcoming of everything that we've done. We came in and decided what we're going to do is we're going to try and be as X's and O's as possible. We want people to learn. We want to try and educate the limited knowledge that we have. We want to try and transpose that. We want to try and gain more and try and feed that on to people as well. And it's led to getting to do a whole bunch of things that I never thought I'd ever get to do in this space. So I am so grateful for all of my time. So grateful for anybody that's listened, read, done anything, had me on the radio show. I'm incredibly grateful for that. And then, I'm still going to be around, still going to be floating in the ether, not disappearing anywhere. I'll still have my takes, especially when, we get mid-season and everybody's freaking out about how Spagnuolo's defense isn't good anymore. Trust me, I will be needing to pop back on to defend it. But, I will still be around in some capacity, just needing to take a step back.
All right. No, I get it. I understand it. Let's talk some Chiefs football and what's going on with the Chiefs. I'll start with the news that I just gave out there. Is there it's not even June yet, so it's May 30th. Next week is mandatory minicamp, and next week is week 3 of phase 3, and then it's mandatory minicamp. Then they've got this break before they head off into training camp. So is there a concern that in rookie minicamp, Xavier Worthy sat out a portion of the practice, and now back-to-back weeks when the media is there at practice in the OTAs, that he is on the sideline in, essentially civilian clothes with a jersey over the top and no helmet and just watching practice?
I don't – slightly. I'm not going to say that it's not a concern, because that was, kind of one of the knocks on him coming out of college. Is he going to be able to hold up to the rigors of an NFL schedule? That doesn't just mean, hey, you're catching a drag route across the middle of the field and here comes a safety, the playing quarters coverage is going to try and light you up. It also means the day-to-day practice schedule, the nutritional stuff, the weightlifting stuff, everything that goes on in an NFL offseason. That's part of this as well. So it's not, one of those things that I'm just completely sweeping under the rug. But like you said, it is May. They have said that, this is something that if it were a game today, he would be playing. That's what Patrick Mahomes said last week. I tend to lean with Pat in that regard. Now, if you'll allow me to put on a small conspiracy hat, it's very interesting that we're not hearing about any of the Xavier Worthiness, kind of stuff that's in the closed practices. We're not hearing anything about it at all. I am curious if somebody asks today and says, hey, is he not practicing every day? Or is this just something where he's getting a rest day every once in a while? Because if that's the case, then putting my conspiracy hat on, they want to make sure that they keep that man under wraps as much as possible right now. And we have seen them do that with players before, where it's been, no, we're not putting out video clips about that guy. We're not showing the types of things that we're doing with that guy. We're keeping it pretty low key, whether that be to try and shirk some of the expectations, not trying to put too much on a kid too early here, or if it's, hey, we don't want you to see some of the things that we've got coming for this kid. We don't want to give a defensive coordinator a little extra work. We don't want to give anything else. And yes, it's on air, but if they're working elements of the route tree, they're working through some of the different things that they want him to do within the structure of the offense, they don't want to put their hand on any of that. So I am curious to see, did he practice at all this week, or was this just something that they're just saying, oh, it's another rest day, which maybe makes me think, we're just easing him in as far as the media and the public availability is going to be able to see Xavier Worthy in a Chiefs uniform.
Yeah, I would say that it's something to keep in mind. It's a nugget to sort of keep on the side there, as in the little sidebar of the newspaper. And, if mandatory minicamp or something at training camp, it would be, all right, is this now becoming a trend with Xavier Worthy in some soft tissue issues with him? It could also be training for the combine versus playing football. And, those are different things. So using different muscles, training for a combine, Now you're going out there and playing a version of football, not, real football. It's passing camp, but it could be that as well. So we'll see. Something to keep in mind. Put it off to the side. But, anytime something like this happens where it's, 3 different OTAs and camps and there's been at least a portion of a practice that he's missed, you start to worry about a Sammy Watkins, a soft tissue, thing that keeps popping up. But it's early. And it's been 3 weeks for Xavier Worthy, so hopefully it's just a blip on the radar, and we move past it, and he's fine. So.
And that brings me to this, because I agree with you fully on the combine training, but isn't the combine supposed to be representative of football? Isn't that the entire reason for those drills? And yet now here we are with everybody training for the combine and not training, things that are going to be relevant to the football field. I just find the dichotomy of that very interesting as of late.
No, it's absolutely true. And the irony of that whole thing of no, the combine is supposed to be, you're showing what you can do on a football field. But then you hear players going, yeah, but I was preparing and I was working out and getting ready for the combine, and now I'm in different shape because now I got to get ready for football. Oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, so the combine definitely matters then. Craig Stout is our guest with KC Sports Network, brought to you by the Kansas Department of Transportation and Drive to Zero Coalition, inviting you to join fans with a plan. If you're going to be drinking, always designate a sober driver. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Craig, was, so we're seeing different battles that'll be taking place at camp. Wanya and Kingsley, and we'll hear from Andy Heck today, so maybe get an idea to what that looks like. It's a passing camp, and the offensive linemen can't really show what they can do when they aren't in pads, etc. But the offensive linemen, cornerback, slot cornerback, wide receiver, there's some battles to be had. And I'm curious from your standpoint, if there were one battle at camp that's won outright and would set your mind at ease, out of all the different positions that might be up for grabs, which is the one that you would point to and go, all right, if there's a player that stands out and the Chiefs and their coaches go, this guy won the battle and he's the starter, not by default, but because he's earned it, which spot would that be in your mind?
Ooh, that is an excellent question, Jason. I'm going to go corner. I think that is the clear spot that they have a ton of bodies. And if it was something that they came out of this camp and they said, we are so comfortable with, and I'm just picking a name out here, it could be any one of these guys, we are so comfortable with Joshua Williams, we already think that he's the guy. We know that he's the one that we want starting on the outside. We want Trick McDuffie also starting on the outside. By all reports, Shamari Connor is getting the first crack at the nickelback. But we feel so confident that Joshua Williams is going to be the starter opposite of Trent McDuffie coming out of this camp. I think you've got to be super excited for the kid at that point, because it means he took that next step. L'Jarius Sneed leaving creates a hole in what this defense can do on the back end. Now, I have a lot of faith in this safety room that are going to cover up a lot of things. They are going to be so dynamic and amoebic in the middle of the field with the safety room, and I don't think there's an outright winner there. I think that there are going to be games that each of the 4 guys are going to have their starring role in, and I'm very excited for the safety room. But the question becomes, are they going to be able to run the entire exotic coverage book that Steve Spagnuolo has in his arsenal? 2 years ago, when a lot of these guys were rookies, they ran a lot of static cover 2. They didn't really modify it too terribly much. Last year, you saw growth and development in that. But again, they had a L'Jarius Sneed on the roster. They had somebody that they trusted to come in and be able to run the full complement of everything that they could. Now, in year 3 for a lot of these guys that ran that static cover 2 look so often 2 years ago, I want to see somebody step up, take hold of the reins. If I heard coming out of camp, yep, it's Josh Williams. That's who it's going to be this year. We feel so great in it. That means he's picked everything up. He feels super comfortable in the scheme. They feel super comfortable with him in the scheme. I get really excited about what they can do in the secondary again. I'm already a little bit excited, but I get very excited that we're not going to see maybe a little bit of a reversion in some of what they could run, which made them so good as a defense last year. We get to maybe see that gap between L'Jarius Sneed and Joshua Williams, and again, just what they can run on the field, not necessarily in the quality of play, that has closed up significantly, and this defense is going to be able to really play like they did last year on the back end.
It's interesting because those are really good points that you make about being able to be more exotic and having that opposite Trent McDuffie position solidified. Also, you like the defense. You're partial to the defensive side. I would have guessed, and if I would have put a poll out and asked the same thing, I would have guessed the majority would have said left tackle. Why cornerback over? You gave all the reasons there as to why that would be your number one, but over maybe specifically finding that spot or somebody winning that job outright at left tackle versus the cornerback spot.
I mean, left tackle is my number two, to be clear, and it's a small gap.
Why do you think left tackle is not a problem right now, Craig? You chose cornerback, which means left tackle is not an issue. Why?
See, Jason, this is why I'm shutting it. No, I'm kidding.
That makes sense. Totally.
No, I think maybe because my expectations for the quality of play for Wanya Morris or Kingsley is a little bit lower than what my expectation is for the cornerbacks. That's not to say that those guys aren't good football players and aren't going to be integral parts of what this offense is going to be. They absolutely are. I just think that the ceiling this year specifically is higher for the cornerbacks. And so that would kind of reassure me that, hey, if this offense, for whatever reason, doesn't make the steps forward that we believe they can, they do have the safety net of the defense. But for left tackle, you told me coming out of camp, Kingsley has supplanted Wanya Morris at the left tackle position, that he is the guy that's getting the majority of the reps. They really like what they've seen. What that tells me, because you mentioned this is a passing camp, they don't have pads on, they're really just kind of going out there, they're going through the motions, they're making sure that they hit their landmarks. But Kingsley's biggest thing coming out of BYU is he needs to learn traditional drop back passing, spacing, understanding where he needs to be, hitting the things. It's footwork related things. And so when you look at some of that, yes, he's really light on his feet, he's super agile, but it's hitting things the way that Andy Heck wants him to. If we came out of OTAs with the expectation that, hey, Kingsley has the starting left tackle job, that's rock solid, what that tells me is he has advanced significantly beyond what we saw at BYU last year, and there are legitimate reasons to be excited for him as the Chiefs starting left tackle. Now, what is that bar? That's the real question there for me, because I don't know that it's, now all of a sudden he's a top 10 left tackle in the league. I'm not saying he can't get there. He certainly has all the physical makeup to be able to do so, but I don't expect that he will be a top 10 left tackle in the league. There's still going to be growing pains. He hasn't put the pads on yet. We haven't seen how he handles some of the power, and he's going to see plenty of it. We're lining up across from George Karlaftis and Mike Davis. He's going to see plenty of that. I want to see what that looks like with pads on before I feel comfortable elevating him into an echelon that we hope, there's a ceiling that we hope with him. Whereas if you just straight up told me Joshua Williams is the guy, we love what we saw out of him in camp so far this year, I started getting really excited about this maybe being a top 5 secondary again.
Craig Stout's our guest from KC Sports Network, brought to you by Kansas Department of Transportation. Sports Radio 810, proud to partner with the Kansas Drive to Zero Coalition and encourage you to join Kansas fans with a plan. Always have a designated driver or other sober rider to and from your destination. One more on the offensive line, and before we let you go, you wrote about C.J. Hansen at KC Sports Network, the interior offensive lineman, 7th rounder from Holy Cross. What value do you think he could bring to the Chiefs this year? Is he Allegretti and fills that role? Is that Norzad that'd be Allegretti? What is C.J. Hansen? What do you see in the film study of him and what he might be able to give the Chiefs?
I think Norzad is Allegretti. I think you're spot on with that one. He just feels like that, and I believe the Chief Scout even said that in kind of the post-draft presser that he did, that we feel like he's our Allegretti. C.J. Hansen this year, again, he's going to need a lot of work. Came from Holy Cross, didn't face a ton of elite competition, so you don't know what he's going to line up and do. But what he can bring to the team this year is they can still run a lot of the same screen game and a lot of the same kind of run concepts that they currently are with Trey Smith, Holy Cross used him as a puller all the time. They got him out in space. They had him kind of be the key cog of their run game. He was the tip of the spear. He was the guy that was searching out, the linebacker, the second level when he was on the move, and he was pretty good at it. That was one of his biggest things that you see when you turn on the tape, is just his movement ability, his ability to find guys in space. That's the way that they use Trey Smith. They really kind of predicate a lot of their gap run game on what they're doing with Trey Smith specifically. So from a this year perspective, having a guy that is comfortable at right guard already, that's what he played at Holy Cross last year, and being able to be in space as a puller gives you the ability to just kind of line up and say, we don't have to significantly modify our play calls with him on the field again. If he makes the team, if, he stands up in the level of competition and all of that. But if he's on the 53, they obviously feel comfortable with him filling in those spots. I think he's a direct Trey Smith replacement this year if they needed him to fill in for any sort of reason, just because he can do a lot of the same things that they like to do with Trey, a lot of the highlight reel stuff that we see out of Trey, as far as finishing and being in space and doing all of that. C.J. Hansen just kind of fits with that. He was a guy that I had watched a little bit of tape on. He was a big pulling blocker. He was fun. He was a little bit flashy. The more I dove into his tape, the more it really kind of syncs up and aligns with what the Chiefs do. And so I really like this move. I don't know if that's going to be the spot for him, if he's going to be, a starting right guard level at any point in his career. But the Chiefs are really good at loading up the depth in the past few years, really loading up the depth behind that interior that they've worked so hard to build and have play at a high level. Getting another guy that doesn't, kind of force you to change the way that you play, change your run concepts, change your screen game, is significant for this offense, especially coming off of a couple of years where they've had to do some serious tweaks to what they can run, what they feel comfortable running down the field, across the middle of the field in the run game. Having another guy that they can just say, hey, we're going to just set it and forget it. We're going to be okay. We get to slot in for however many snaps that Trey Smith is going to miss this year. That's really, really valuable to this team.
Greg Stout, KC Sports Network, and maybe from time to time the KC Laboratory Podcast. Craig,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Appreciate it as always, brother. Great stuff, and we'll catch up soon, man.
Yeah, sounds good, Jason. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. There's Craig Stout, KC Sports Network, kcsn.substack.com. Again, he wrote in depth about some of those things he's talking about with C.J. Hansen and being able to have some of those traits that Trey Smith has, a lesser degree, but if Trey Smith were to go down, somebody that fits a profile of what they are asking their right guard to do. C.J. Hansen has done that, but he's got a lot of developing to go to be able to be a direct replacement that isn't so much of a drop-off. It's one thing to ask somebody to do the same things that Trey Smith does that has the ability to do it. It's another thing to be Trey Smith doing that, and that's a pretty wide gap. When we talk with the KC Sports Network boys, they are brought to you by the Kansas Department of Transportation. Together, fans with a plan, helping prevent crashes and serious injuries caused by impaired driving. Do your part. Use Safe Ride. Schedule your trip on your favorite rideshare app or designate a sober driver. More Zone next. We'll stay with the football conversation on the other side of the break. The wide receiver contracts are going the way that we talked about 2 years ago.
The opposite of the dodo.
That's right. Yeah, it's going the way of, well, I think some of the contracts they're giving out are done by dum-dums and dodos to some number 2 receivers. We'll talk about that and what the going rate is, where it's going, and what the strategy for the Chiefs should be moving forward. With the contracts being signed by Nico Collins and Devontae Smith and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and today, Jalen Waddle.
Enjoy healthier food, more free time, free delivery, and better value. Go to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We had up until 2 o'clock. Coming up an hour from now, typically Sports or Leisure presented by Johnny's Tavern. But we will hear from the Kansas City Chiefs. They are currently going through the last day of this week of OTAs, one more week of OTAs, and then mandatory minicamp, and then a 6-week break on into training camp, which may be changed next year. But the news out of OTAs today is that Xavier Worthy is not participating today as well. So last Wednesday, the final day of that 3-day OTA session, he did not participate. And today, he is also not participating. Again, last week, Patrick Mahomes said precautionary that if they were playing a game, he'd be playing. Maybe they are continuing to be cautious with that. Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's something different. I don't know. We'll find out. Matt Nagy will talk today along with Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Tobe. And then we'll have some assistant coaches that'll be at the podium as well. 913-912-4810. So news today in the NFL.
That was the news. That you made me sad.
Well, is that news though?
No.
Okay, that's sort of does it end in Y the day? Then yes. Is it between 10 and 2? Then maybe. But right before we came on the air, 10 o'clock, Jalen Waddle announced that he had signed a contract extension. Well, he didn't announce it, but the NFL, his agent, I don't think he went out there and was like holding a press conference, but it was announced. Jalen Waddle's extension, 3 years, $84.75 million for Jalen Waddle, $28.25 per year, with $76 million guaranteed. We have seen this offseason Nico Collins signed for 3 years, a little less than $73 million. So 3 years, let's say 73. $24.25 per year, $52 million guaranteed. We've seen Devontae Smith sign a 3-year deal, $25 million per year, $51 million guaranteed. We've seen Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4 years, $120 million, $30 per year, $77 million guaranteed. These contracts this offseason. The Jalen Waddle one almost feels like it sticks out more than the others. And I know that he was a top 10 selection, right? In those top 10 picks, Jamar Chase, who still hasn't signed, who is holding out of OTAs, not showing up at the voluntary OTAs. He and T. Higgins, both missing OTAs in Cincinnati.
But I was told Bengals fans that everything's going to be great because
Well,
T.
it
Higgins
is.
signed the franchise tag. I
hadn't signed
was
it yet.
told that they were. I was told though by Bengals fans.
July 15th, he's got to sign the franchise tag.
Weird.
But he's not at OTAs. Jamar Chase is up for an extension. Justin Jefferson up for an extension. Obviously, T. Higgins is as well. Brandon Ayuk. Some of the players that are not showing up to camp that are up for extensions. But
this
especially
is why
those,
Brett Veach drafted McCole Hardman
That's right.
and Sky Moore because you don't have to pay him. Now I see what he's doing.
See?
Chestnut checkers, yeah.
Duh. If you draft Sky Moore, you don't have to pay him an astronomical number to keep him around. You can sign, like DeMarcus Robinson, didn't cost a lot of money.
Chestnut checkers, baby.
They got a Super Bowl with DeMarcus Robinson.
There you go.
You know, I cannot prove to you that they win that Super Bowl without DeMarcus Robinson on the field. All I know is they won the Super Bowl with him. That's all I know. I don't know. Anyway, so Jalen Waddle signs his deal, more than $28 million per year. I think you can make a case that Nico Collins is a number one or as close to a number one receiver. I, would make the case that I think, Devontae could be close to that. Smith. Mm-hmm. Certainly Devontae Adams is that. But, Devontae might be close. But he's getting $3 million per year less than what Jalen Waddle is getting. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably close to being, that number one receiver.
Oh, no, Amon-Ra St. Brown's top 5 in the NFL. I will die on
I'm
that
not-
hill. Amon-Ra
yeah.
St. Brown's the most
I'm not
underrated
gonna-
wide receiver in the NFL.
I'm not going to argue one way or another on this because it doesn't really, go one way or another with my
Sure.
point. So I'll that's fine.
Acquiesce with me and tell me he's a wide receiver one. That's all I need to hear from you.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Point being, though, there aren't a lot of wide receiver ones. It's sort of like it's a baseball rotation. There's the number one for your rotation. It doesn't make him an ace. There's a number one wide receiver on your team. It doesn't make him a number one wide receiver. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay, Cooper Kupp. CeeDee Lamb, I think, has proven that over the last couple of years, certainly. Garrett Wilson can be that.
Yeah.
If he's got Aaron Rodgers for a full season, then we might see Garrett Wilson is a true number one wide receiver in the NFL. I think Hopkins has flashes still of being that. At one point he was.
At one point, I wouldn't say anymore, but I think at one point.
At one point he was. And we don't know about what rookies may turn in to be, number one wide receivers. So if we're just talking about entering 2024. But Jalen Waddle is not that. He is not a number one wide receiver. He's a number two wide receiver in the NFL. He might be a good number two wide receiver, but he's a number two wide receiver. And he's a number two wide receiver. He's not a number one.
Can I give some slight pushback?
Oh, sure,
Some
go ahead.
slight pushback. I think you can make the case that he is a bottom number one wide receiver. Now, we won't know because he plays with Tyreek Hill, and so that's going to obviously...
If Jalen Waddle's a number one wide receiver, then you're talking about how many number one wide receivers? 20, 25 number ones in the NFL?
Then they don't go get Tyreek Hill.
Hey, I get it, but part of me is sitting here going, is it unfair to say that to a guy who, in 3 years, has averaged over 1,100 yards per season, over 1,000 yards as a rookie, 1,300 yards as a second year, over 1,000 yards last year, 18 touchdowns. He's averaging 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns a season. Where does that fit in? That's either an elite number two, which I'll grant you, an elite number two.
I think he's a number two, though. I think he's a number two.
That's fine.
Tyreek Hill without Jalen Waddle is fine. Jalen Waddle without Tyreek Hill, I think is completely different.
I don't think we know.
And I think Jalen Waddle, and I certainly think that Mike McDaniel's good enough to scheme him open.
Sure.
And when you've got Tyreek out there along with Jalen Waddle, I don't think the Dolphins have two number one wide receivers on their team. I think they've got a true number one in Tyreek, and they've got a guy who maybe at some point in his career could grow into that.
Sure.
But right now is a good receiver, is, good with the ball in his hands, and I think can be schemed in certain ways. And 1,000 yards isn't necessarily the same that it used to be, especially with 17-game seasons.
Agreed. And he's played, by the way, all 16 games, 17 games, 14 games.
Yeah, because he did have the injury this last year, and I'm not going to dock him for missing a couple of games in his 3-year career as if he's somehow injury prone. But even if you say he's a high number two, you're talking about over $28 million per year for that.
I wouldn't do it.
And I think that's my overriding point, is the Chiefs weren't willing to go there for Tyreek Hill. And the Dolphins went there for $30 million for Tyreek Hill. And if you're going to be paying some of these receivers what they are getting paid, then market value, Tyreek Hill is absolutely worth what the Miami Dolphins are paying him. Because, again, we're talking about market value, comparatively speaking to what other players are getting.
Sure.
Justin Jefferson is going to get an absurd amount. And I wonder if Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are playing a game of chicken and no, you go first. No, you go first. Because whatever you get, I'm coming over the top. And if Chase, you go first, then Jefferson, I'm getting more. Jefferson, you go first. I think he's better than him. He was injured all of last year. No, I'm good. I'm getting more than him. I think they are waiting for the other to get an asterisk because they're going to be the top two paid wide receivers in the NFL is Chase and Jefferson.
Yes. Who would you say is worth more?
Jefferson.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would. I think I would pay Jefferson, but
it's weird we agreed. I don't like that. Something's going on.
But I mean, not far behind is Jamar Chase.
Right. Yeah, agreed.
Jamar Chase is fantastic. In fact, you know what? It's Jefferson because Jamar Chase sucks. Do you like A or B? I'll take A. Why do you think B sucks? Why do you hate B? No, I think Jefferson all around is a better wide receiver, but we're splitting hairs when we're talking about Jefferson and Chase. They're going to be the top 2 paid wide receivers in the NFL. How much money is going to be left over for T. Higgins, if any? How much money might be left over for an extension for Trey Hendrickson, if any? There are 5 NFL teams that have 2 wide receivers on their team that they're paying more than $20 million per year. There are 5 teams. Eagles, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Sure.
Miami,
Dolphins,
now
yeah.
with Tyreek Hill. Houston, Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs with the trade. The Bears, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. And Tampa Bay barely makes the cut.
Chris Godwin.
Evans 20.5 and Godwin 20.
Yeah.
Just barely makes the cut. The Chiefs' top 5 receivers, this is without Xavier Worthy because he hasn't signed his contract yet. The Chiefs' top 5 receivers are $14.5 million combined. And Xavier Worthy throw in a couple. So
Wait,
16.
he hasn't signed the contract yet?
I don't think he signed his deal yet, has he?
Does that make a bit more sense of why he's sitting out of practice right
That's
now?
an interesting point. I don't know, unless he sat out all 3 practices, you know what I mean?
Right.
Last week it was a hamstring issue or a soft tissue as to why, and even Patrick Mahomes saying that, if this was a game, maybe it is precautionary to not get him injured before he signs the contract.
And maybe it's his
Yeah.
agent telling him that.
Yeah, because Kingsley
Look at
signed
the big brain on Dylan.
on Brad, right? Okay, that's that Hawaiian joint over there where the Chiefs are practicing. But $14.5 million for the 5 wide receivers for the Chiefs that are under contract right now, and the unknown about what Worthy's going to get. Versus, you're talking about $20 million for all of those players that we just mentioned. And there's something to be said for you've got a number 1 or a number 2, true number 2 receiver, a number 1 or a true number 2 receiver that's making that money. And then you can have the smaller pieces get a little bit less money.
Sure.
As opposed to having, and Hollywood Brown at $7 million is a part of that 14.5. So it ain't exactly like they've got a scrub. And Rashee Rice, if, he would, take more time getting from place to place in his car, could be another good number 2 or a high-level number 3 for Rashee Rice. I think Hollywood is a good 2.
Sure.
Could, with the right quarterback, be a higher-level number 2.
Sure.
But I think he's a good number 2. I think Rashee Rice is a number 3 that could grow into even more. Maybe grow into a true
I think
number 2.
Rice is a 2, and I think Hollywood's a 2.
I think Rice can be a 2. I think right now he's a 3. I think he can be a 2. He's got we'll see another year in the system and, what he can do in different types of routes instead of like, hey, go over there and get open and sit down in this space, which there's nothing wrong with that because his yards after catch are great. But realistically, I think he's a number 3. If you're looking at like true 1s, true 2s, true 3s, things like that, I think he's that receiver who can be a 2. But you're paying $28.25 for Jalen Waddle. To me, if I'm the Chiefs moving forward, I'm wide receiver running backing it. I'm running backing the wide receiver core to a degree. I'm churning and burning.
We're afforded that luxury because of the quarterback.
Because of the quarterback.
Yep.
You won a Super Bowl last year with that motley crew, and you're able to do that. You don't need to be paying $60 million for your 2 receivers like the Dolphins are. And part of that is they don't fully believe in Tua. They haven't signed Tua yet.
Well, here's the thing. Mahomes is no longer on a rookie contract.
Right.
Okay. I'm looking at the cap hit right now, the average percent. Tyreek Hill is 14.4% of the cap hit of Miami's, while Jalen Waddle is now 11.06.
Which, by the way, the cap hit going up, Tyreek Hill, I think at one point was 21%.
So
when he first signed. So that's dropping to now 14%.
And this is the average of the sign. So
right.
They take up a quarter. Those 2 players,
25%.
They take up 25% of the cap. And this is what you and I were talking about earlier. The Chiefs can't afford to do that because, 1, Mahomes is not on a rookie contract. It's not going to work. Sorry. I know it's a deal. It's a steal. It's still how the cap works. You got 100% to deal with. The Saints are the only team in the NFL that somehow gets away with it, and that's because the Saints perpetually go 500, so the NFL just does not care. When I'm looking at this, Miami's going to be screwed in the future if they try and pay Tua. Think about the defense. Think about the offensive line who they're paying. Was it Robert Hunt? $20 million for a guard? You're going to have all that money going to 3 players. Good luck trying to pay Tua and then fill out the rest of the roster. The Chiefs win. Not just with Mahomes being the best player on the planet, which is a fact. Fact. Not fiction. Fact. Best player on the planet. But
Is it fact or is it fiction?
But
I don't
they
know.
win because they have all these advantages in the margins. It's why I said last year they'll be fine and they'll win with a bad wide receiving core, and why I agree with you on how they're going to running back the wide receiver room. Because he can elevate wide receivers. You know who he can't elevate? The offensive line.
Yeah.
To an extent, he can elevate the tackles a little bit, but to an extent, we saw what happened in the Buccaneers game, right?
He is one of the best at avoiding sacks. He is one of the best turning pressure into non-sacks.
But you can't,
if not the best.
You can't elevate your defense, right? You can't. Sorry. Mahomes isn't elevating his defense. So what have the Chiefs done? They said, we'll go cheaper at wide receiver because we no longer have a quarterback on a rookie contract. You can then afford to pay Joe Tooney that money. You can then afford to bring in, I don't like the deal, but you can afford to pay Jawan Taylor, right? And then what happens defensively? You can afford to have one of, if not the highest paid defensive tackles in football in Chris Jones. You can afford to have the highest paid tight end in Travis Kelce. You can afford to have Justin Reed back there. You can afford to have Drew Tranquil come back on yet another contract. What the Chiefs have done is win in the margins, not just with the best quarterback on the planet, but they've won in the margins. It's why you can afford to pay Harrison Butker, maybe the best kicker, second best kicker in the entire NFL. Would you rather have Harrison Butker or name a dude on the Chargers? Cameron Dicker.
I mean, I'll take Butker.
Yes, it costs more money, but because you're not paying wide receivers, you're getting
for.
what you're paying for. They're winning in the margins, and I think that's one of the more underrated aspects of Brett Veach and his roster construction here.
Well, they've also drafted really well. And they've had a couple of drafts that they have hit on a good portion of those players, including a draft in which is one of the best we've seen that had Sky Moore in it. Because that's how good the rest of the picks were, but also because of the volume of picks that they had. And they did a fantastic job of hitting on a good portion of those. But you've got 3 years in a row now, the Chiefs have selected a wide receiver in the first or second round. We'll see what happens with Xavier Worthy. But Rashee Rice certainly seems like worth the pick. Sky Moore doesn't seem like it was worth the pick in the second round. Hopefully Xavier Worthy is worth the first-round pick because that gives you 4 or 5 years. That if you're the Chiefs going into the draft every year, you might be in a position of, we're going to take a wide receiver. Maybe not the first round every year, but we'll take a wide receiver in the second or third round, depending on how many picks we have. And that's how we're going to build the wide receiver group and supplement with the Hollywood Brown, a Juju Smith-Schuster, the one-year prove-it deals, that we can have some incentives to go along with a veteran guy and some younger players. And also those younger players we drafted start to become veteran players when they're in year 3 and 4 of the system, or year 5 if it's a first-rounder in Xavier Worthy. Although, if he's that good, I doubt he's just playing year 5. He'll either get an extension or traded going into year 5. I doubt it to be one of those where pick up the 5th-year option, play him, and then boom, go on. It might be one of those to where you churn and burn. And they were willing to trade Tyreek Hill. They'd be willing to trade Xavier Worthy or whoever else is a first-round draft pick. And I think that's the strategy moving forward. The bubble's going to burst with wide receiver contracts. It's going to get to the point to where it's so saturated with wide receivers in the NFL that we're arguing over like Waddle or Rice of who's a 2, who's a 3.
Sure.
And guys that, 10 years ago, it wouldn't be a question. Rice is a number 2. Maybe he's a number 1. Look how big he is. And look at yards. He almost had 1,000 yards in 15 games. And he, started out, or 16 games. And he started out slow and he was dropping passes. And, he became a real target for Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Waddle is so maybe the most dynamic receiver in the league in his ability to break. Like 10 years ago,
sure,
I think Waddle would be, hey, this guy's a real number 1 receiver. Now, I think he's a good number 2. High-level number 2. I don't think he's a number 1. But the going rate for a good number 2 is almost $30 million per year. Now that the Dolphins paid Waddle. It may not have been the going rate, but it is now. It is the going rate now. Just as Christian Kirk got the $19 million, that was the going rate for somebody that was as good or better than Christian Kirk.
Sure.
And that has gone up and up. And as the salary cap has increased, because as I talked about, when Tyreek Hill signed that contract, you're looking at 20-some-odd% of the cap going to Tyreek Hill. This year, he's getting $30 million, and it's like 14% of the cap going to Tyreek Hill.
and again, just going back, just for roster construction purposes, I find this very fascinating. Mahomes, the average percent of his cap hit against the team for just purposes of this argument here is 22.7%. Right? That's actually
average over every single year.
Over every single year
is what the projected
average
caps
percent of cap at
because he's 14.5% this year.
So just the average in the Mahomes contract is going to be 22.7%. That's you bet about a fifth of the cap, a little more than a fifth of the cap is going to be Mahomes. That's not crazy.
I mean, he's worth more than that.
Kirk Cousins is 17.6. Deshaun Watson is actually higher. Kyler Murray, 22. Jalen Hurts, 22. Lamar, 23%. Joe Burrow is the highest, it looks like, at 24.5, basically. That's just the going rate for elite quarterbacks, or at least quarterbacks on a second contract. You know, Jared Goff is 20% of the cap hit for Detroit. But then you go to the wide receivers, right? Because you know you have to pay the quarterback. If you want to have a successful team, you got to pay the quarterback. You go to wide receivers now. Are you going to pay 11% of your cap to Jalen Waddle?
No.
11% of your cap to Terry McLaurin. 10% of your cap to Keenan Allen. 10% of your cap to Amari Cooper. Chris Godwin, 9.61. Brandon Cooks for Dallas, 9.5. This is the Deontay Johnson just signed for 8.82%. Of the entire cap of the Panthers is going almost 9% is going to Deontay Johnson. And this is my point here. When you have a quarterback on a non-rookie deal, you can't afford to pay the Christian Kirks, the Deontay Johnsons, the Cortland Sutton 8.5% of your cap space. I know everyone in Chiefs Kingdom wants to see Mahomes with a legit wide receiver 1 or a great wide receiver 2. You got to draft him. Because if you want to see Harrison Butker, one of the best kickers in football on your team, if you want to keep Chris Jones, if you want to get the Drew Tranquils, if you want an offensive line that's not the Super Bowl Buccaneers offensive line, this is what you have to do.
Well, you've got Nico Collins that signed the contract there in Houston, and you've got C.J. Stroud. And they've got Stephon Diggs at $20+ million. So you got
rookie
C.J.
contract.
Stroud. Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown combining for $57 million annual average value. But even with Jalen Hurts signing the contract, Jalen Hurts' cap hit won't get to $40 million until 2027.
And they traded for A.J. Brown before they signed Jalen Hurts.
Before exactly. So they traded for Jalen Brown or A.J. Brown. And no, you're good. They traded for A.J. Brown and paid him before they knew they had what they had in Jalen Hurts. And then they draft Devontae Smith, pay him the money. But again, over the next 3 years, Jalen Hurts' cap hit is 13.5, 21.8, and 31.8. He doesn't get to $40 million until 2027. And at that point, those receivers are cycling out of their contract.
And the quarterbacks will way outpace him.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, crazy outpacing with that average. So they don't have a, quote, rookie contract quarterback with Jalen Hurts, but they also don't have a Mahomes and Burrow and Josh Allen and Herbert when those contracts, like Josh Allen's contract, is kicking in. Now, you can always restructure because Mahomes has continued to restructure.
Correct.
So do some of those, but you're kicking the can down the road. Easier with Mahomes when you got a 10-year contract. But you can restructure some of those things. But that price tag is going to come due quicker for the Bills and the Bengals and the Chargers, et cetera, on the shorter contract. But even the Eagles have a cheaper quarterback in what the cap hit is going to be when they can afford to pay A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The Dolphins have not paid Tua, and he showed up to OTAs. There was questions of whether or not he was going to hold out. He's decided he's going to, he's there at OTAs. Good for him. Great. Awesome. But the Dolphins, I think, have also shown they don't have faith in paying Tua $40-some-odd million per year to be the quarterback because they would have already done that. And I think what they're looking at is saying, if we have Tua, we have to have the weapons around him to get the most out of Tua. So if we don't have Waddle and Tyreek, but we've got Tua, I can scheme some things open, but he won't be the same quarterback. We're going to get the value out of Tua by having more weapons around him, which really just shows that do you have the value in the quarterback?
Yes.
Because which is exactly right.
Yeah, agreed.
Also with Joe Burrow. So we're trying to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, but I thought Joe Burrow was a force multiplier.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think they are trying to pay him, though.
They aren't. I'm just saying,
yeah, because, I mean,
T. Higgins,
we traded our top receiver. We didn't pay.
Right.
We,
I think they should have traded T. Higgins, but unless they're looking at it and saying,
true. They have
we're going to
two.
give T. Higgins one more year on the franchise tag. He's not going to sit out because then he's got to go through this next year. Same thing. So he's going to play 1 year on the franchise tag. And guess what, T? Second-round pick, you get to make $22 million this year. There are worse things in the world than playing football for a year and making $22 million. Now, he wants $70 million guaranteed. That's $50 million, and, that's a big difference of saying I'm going to play the next 4 years and get $70 million as opposed to 1 year where I can get hurt, catastrophic injury, whatever, never play again, I get $22 million.
That's 15th in the NFL this year. AAV
is 22.
Is 22. I'm looking at it, and that's just behind Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and that's the franchise tag for T. Higgins. Jamar Chase is going to get a boatload of money, and they are going to pay Jamar Chase. I think they either trade T. Higgins before camp, or he plays on the deal, and then they turn it over to Burton from Alabama in the third round if he turns out to be a good player, if he can keep his nose clean, keep his head on straight. He's had issues off the field, which I don't like him going to the Bengals because I would have.
Me neither. I really liked him.
Yeah,
Dude's talented.
He's really
Very
talented.
talented.
If he can just go along with the crowd at chow time and just do the things you're supposed to do, then he'll be fine. And they can look at it and go, we don't have to pay T. Higgins. But for a year, we've exchanged Tyler Boyd for Burton, and we've got T and Jamar Chase still before Burrow's contract really starts getting astronomical.
And a really good system quarterback.
Yeah, and yes, and when that happens, we move on from T. We've got a third-round draft pick contract for Burton, and when we sign Jamar Chase to that crazy contract, we don't have the cap hit right away. We can slow play that as well with Jamar Chase and backload it if you want to.
And that's what's going to be interesting, especially for Kansas City purposes going forward. This year, it looks like Mahomes' cap hit is $37 million. That's his cap hit. It's when we get to next year. Next year, it looks like it's 66.25.
Yeah, and it won't be 66.
It won't be that, but
they'll continue to do that and push it down the road until they restructure at some point, et cetera. But here's the one thing that the Chiefs have going for them, and why people have talked about, can you find a replacement right now, is that we're talking about all of this money that wide receivers are getting. That Jalen Waddle's getting $28.25 per year. Travis Kelce's a better player than Jalen Waddle. More productive.
Fact.
Best tight end in the game, in the history. He's making what, $14, $15 million?
Was it 17 now?
So it's 17 now? Yeah, he was.
Let me
so
look
he
it
got
up.
the.
I can look it up.
He got the boost for these 2 years, which could be the final 2 years of his career. But that's the advantage, not only having Kelce what he does, but the advantage of you have a true number one receiver on your team in Kelce. You're just paying him 50% of what a number two receiver is going for now, a number two specific receiver is going for now. And that's part of the reason as to why, hey, maybe you should start trying to find a replacement for Kelce, because the value is in a really high-level tight end as opposed to a number 2 or 3 wide receiver.
Think about this potential fallout from the receivers as well. With the game going back to let's run the football, everyone's kind of a lighter linebacker trying to cover the pass. Let's go 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends here. They're cheaper. If we hit on one, he's also like a receiver like Kelce, and we don't have to pay him $30 million a year.
Yeah.
And we're also going against the grain of what the NFL is now, which is a pass-happy league. And that's how we won the Super Bowl last year, was Pacheco and defense.
Well, and I mean,
obviously,
I don't know that
the
it's
quarterback.
look,
and
everything else,
Mahomes.
Yeah.
right.
And Chris Jones.
Yeah, I don't know that it's Jared
Defense.
Wiley, but I think it's why people were wondering about Dalton Kincaid or Laporta or Bauer. You know, just different names that were brought up the last couple of years of, hey, is it time to look at that replacement for Kelce, because the Chiefs are keenly aware of the advantage they have by being able to trade Tyreek Hill and still have Kelce.
Yeah.
Because what the Chiefs were able to do with Kelce and Tyreek, if they were to pay him, be Tyreek at 30, Kelce at now 17. So that's $47 million. That's a lot for the two, but that's also Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs for the Houston Texans. But if you were paying Tyreek Hill on your team, what the Philadelphia Eagles are doing is paying A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. If the Chiefs had a number 1 wide receiver, they'd be paying high-level number 1 wide receiver money and then number 3 or 4 wide receiver money for their tight end, who is also a number 1 receiver. they are keenly aware of the value that they have.
Well, then you wouldn't have Chris Jones, too.
Well, I know. I'm just saying it as an example of.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it as an example of what the benefit that the Chiefs have. The Bengals are trying to fit in Burrow, Higgins, and Chase. Well, I mean, the Chiefs wanted to do that with Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek, right? But Higgins is going to make more money than Travis Kelsey.
Yes, agreed.
Higgins is going to get $100 million over 4 years.
Higgins is pissed he's making 22 for
Yes.
1 year.
He wants more than 20.
That's
He's
5 more than Kelsey's
yeah,
going to make.
He's going to get 3 for 75 or 3 for 80 or 4 for 100, depending, after this year. If he goes out and has a good year, they can't fit all 3 of those guys because of the contract, because of the quarterback making a lot of money. The Chargers traded away Keenan Allen and moved on from Mike Williams because they're paying Herbert, and they've turned to draft picks now and getting younger and cheaper at the wide receiver spot because Herbert's contract is kicking in. We'll see what the Bengals do. We'll see what T. Higgins does. But the Chiefs are in a easier spot over the next couple of years if they were to pay wide receiver 1 money because they already have a wide receiver 1 that's making 17 now, that was making 14, that's making 17. But I'm not getting into that market because number 2 receiver money is damn near $30 million per year. Now, you guys can go ahead and pay that. You keep doing that. Chiefs, draft, first round, second round, third round, continue to churn, grab those guys, and
Get
1
the
year
Tranquils. Get
1 year prove-it deals
Yep.
with wide receivers, and continue to win Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes while the other teams rely on the receiver making the quarterback better. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes,
Yeah,
Dylan
baby.
Michaels, heading up until 2 o'clock. We will hear from the Kansas City Chiefs coming up on the other side as they will be finishing up practice. Right around now, they're finishing up practice. And practice 3 of week 2 of phase 3 OTAs. Just so everybody knows exactly what they're doing right now. This is next week will be week 3 of phase 3. Practice was 1, 2, and 3. But we'll hear from the Kansas City Chiefs coming up in a little bit at 1 o'clock. It'll be coordinators and some assistant coaches that we will hear from coming up at 1 o'clock.
Justin Ross hype been really calm this year, huh?
Why? It's weird because the Chiefs, they do have a true number 1 receiver on their team. It's just named Justin Ross. He just needs to get the opportunity. If he was healthy, you're talking about maybe T. Higgins or better than T. Higgins. I'm not sure. But that's where, 2 years the Chiefs have this advantage with Travis Kelce on their team. For the next 2 years, they've got the advantage of being able to pay somebody who does the things that Kelce does for this offense to pay him only $17 million per year. Where without Kelce, they'd have to be more invested in some wide receivers. And that would be the question, too, of moving forward, if it's the churn and burn, if it's the draft and move on, the sign and let go with the 1-year prove-it deals. If that's the strategy that they take, the question then becomes, can you do that on a regular basis every year if you don't have Kelce? Because you can do that now with Kelce, because you've got a guy who is a dependable player. You put him in that spot, he's the number 1 target, and that week in and week out, that's your guy. If healthy, that's your guy, week in and week out. So you go into the season in that strategy of having essentially already a phenomenal wide receiver. If you don't have him, do the Chiefs then go the route of saying, no, we want a consistent. We want a constant instead of having more of a revolving door at the wide receiver spot.
About the same price as a Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah. I think if I had my choice, and this is just me, and I know that people may or may not agree with this is out on a limb. If I had my choice and I could spend $17 million on a player, I personally would spend it on Travis Kelce and not Jerry Jeudy. That's just me.
Browns noted great organization.
Yes.
Noted great contracts given out.
For shizzle. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
All right, again, if you haven't heard, Greenlight Dispensary is helping everyone out this May with a no hangovers May at Greenlight Dispensary. Their best cure for the worst part about a good time is to give everyone special pricing on their Flower Box Special this month. Flower Box Specials feature locally grown flower from right here in Kansas City. Greenlight Dispensary...
to GuaranteedFoods.com.
All right, hanging out on this Thursday edition of The Zone. No sports or leisure coming up in the next hour. It is presented by Johnny's Tavern, though.
I'm sad.
Aren't you, though?
I'm sad.
You should be. You know what? We can play sports or leisure, just the three of us, while the press conferences are going on, but I'd rather be listening and taking notes. Well, I'll take notes and listen into the press conferences. You guys can play sports or leisure. Well, Dylan's got to work because going from one interview to the next, if we drop and
Tough,
all that
yeah.
stuff. So you could play sports or leisure with yourself. You've got experience playing with yourself, right?
I like playing with myself, yeah.
Oh, I knew that.
Yeah.
So we will hear from, coming up in a few minutes, Dave Tobe, Steve Spagnuolo, Matt Nagy, Tom Melvin, Andy Heck, and Dave Merritt. That may be the order, but that's also subject to change. It's supposed to start right around 1 o'clock. Alabama, UCLA, the Women's College World Series getting underway, and it was delayed by weather. So they were about an hour delayed in weather. And I found out and learned one of my learned funniest best for Thursday is that Tom Brady's niece plays for UCLA softball. So there you go. I learned that today.
Oh, yeah.
Maya Brady.
We didn't do Learn Funniest Best because we were off Monday.
Well, don't we typically do it on a Thursday? Thursday in the 1 o'clock hour isn't typically learned. Don't we do a Learn Funniest Best for the weekend and then specifically Thursday?
I learned we're doing a Learn Funniest Best on a
Yep,
Thursday.
see,
That's
there you
what I
go.
learned.
I learned that Maya Brady is Tom Brady's niece, and she plays for UCLA. I learned that. And Dylan acted like I was the dumbest person in the world and asked him, oh, hold on, 2 + 2 = 4?
No.
No, that was Dylan's reaction. I said, Maya Brady? And he goes, yeah, it's Tom Brady's niece. Plays for UCLA. Shortstop, right-hander.
Really thought it was going to be
batting 327 this year. She also has 11 home runs. If you're wondering, like what are you? Her PR
It was
representative?
semi-related to NFL football, so that's why I'm saying don't be too hard on yourself.
PR representative here for Maya Brady. I think the Brady family has her taken care of.
I thought Brady Bunch. I'm not going to lie. I thought like one of the Brady Bunch kids made it, and I was like, well, good.
Makes sense.
Good for the Brady Bunch.
And it's time to change. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Brady's
Bobby.
Brady's a common last name.
I mean, yeah.
Semi-common.
No, I think it's pretty common. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a softball player with the last name of Brady, and there's an NFL football
Like
player with the
if
last
I
name
saw
of Brady.
an Anderson, I'm not saying, I wonder if that's Jason's cousin.
Depends on how it's spelled. Is it an Ian or an Owen? Because if it's an Ian, you're probably in Europe. If it's an Owen, you're here.
Anderson.
Had our first life insurance representative when my wife and I were getting married was from Europe, and 3 times we had to change the policy because back-to-back times he put Anderson with an Ian, and we said, yeah, it's an Owen, it's written there, plus our email interaction has the spelling there, and so he redid it, but left my name with Ian and her last name Owen. Yeah, we're going to need both.
Jasen.
You know what? I think we'll probably just go with somewhere else. We're probably just going to go with someone else here. I mean, I feel like this is a rough start to the relationship in buying this particular policy. It's and he's like, I'm so sorry, just living, growing up. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. We still work with him, but it's like, I get it. Okay, growing up, it's always been Ian his whole life, but, it is written right there.
It would be weird if it's Jasen. I'd get you that, yeah.
No, it's Anderson, S-E-N. You were thinking of
Anderson
Jason.
and then S-E-N at the end, Andersonson.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Andersonen.
Okay.
Andersonen. That's right. We'll hear from the Chiefs coming up here in just a little bit, right around now. You're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB, Kansas City. Why are you looking at me like that, Dylan? And Sterling?
What?
You went all robot on us.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
No, just letting people know you're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB, Kansas City. We talked about the Jalen Waddle contract today, discussed that at a decent amount. We talked about the implications of like the overall totality of the offseason with the Isaiah Buggs news and the fact that most people's reaction to the Isaiah Buggs news around here was who? Is that guy? But the allegations and the misdemeanor animal cruelty, 2 different counts, incredibly bad look for him. And it's a bad look for the Chiefs because he's a Chiefs player. And it's been, a weekly issue it seems like, with the Chiefs. It's like, oh, how many weeks since they've been in the news? 0. Can we go a couple of weeks with something like that not happening? So we got into that and discussed a good deal of what this offseason has been.
And we're all going to agree that now we are huge Derek Nottie supporters.
That's exactly right. And Derek Nottie needs to get a lot more love. Needs to get way more love than he has been getting because of his work off the field in rescuing more than 500 dogs. So we give attention to somebody who is being charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of abusing and neglecting a couple of dogs. Well, then, damn it, Derek Nottie needs to get his flowers for making sure a 1,000 dogs were not euthanized and put down by his work and then donating them.
We care.
All of it. Yeah, for sure.
We care.
For sure. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show. Tonight we do have at 7 o'clock the Western Conference Finals, Dallas and Minnesota, 3-1 lead for the Mavericks.
Going back to our conversation in regards to the salary cap and all that stuff, what I do think the Chiefs also do well, yes, they've been able to pay Joe Tooney and bring in, and in my opinion, it was a massive overpay for Jawan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to get into that conversation again because Dylan and I got into it and we got heated.
But you guys started throwing hands. That was weird.
But they've done a good job of developing offensive linemen behind them. And I think that's very important. That's what Hunter Noor's at.
Yep. Maybe he'll be a special teamer, but here's Dave Tope.
It's going to change a lot. They're going to be more like a returner or a running back style type guy because the other returner, the guy that doesn't field the ball, has got to be a good blocker. So they have to be not only a good returner, solid, be able to take a hit and bounce back from a lot of tackles because there's going to be a lot of tackles, but they got to be a really good blocker because there's going to be guys coming free. It's just too many guys down the field at that one, at the point of attack.
How about the strategy, kickoff strategy? How much
Kickoff strategy?
Yeah, do you have to think about that?
Yeah, we're thinking about it a lot. I mean, we practice what we're doing now. We're taking every day and we're working either on kickoff or we're working on kickoff return. Today we worked on kickoff. So what we're trying to do there is, without giving everything away, but we're trying to get the ball on the ground, away from the returners as quick as possible because that's when the kickoff team and the kickoff return team can go as soon as the ball hits the ground in the target zone. Not when it's touched. So unlike the XFL, they waited till the ball was touched before they went. So that's the difference. That's a major difference between our rule and the XFL rule.
How are you evaluating Lewis and Justin Reed as far as kickers on the kick?
I like to have somebody that can go back, is able to make a tackle. I mean, Bucker's able to make a tackle, but I really don't want him making tackles all year long. If you watch the XFL, we watched every play. I bet kickers were involved in probably at least 25 to 40% of the tackles. Either trying to make a guy bounce back or making the tackle itself or just missing the tackle. So, we don't want Bucker in that situation, but he will be a kicker. He'll be a guy that we will use in certain situations. He's got a lot of ability to move the ball, whereas those other guys may not be as, apt to doing that. And, we'll use him. He can still kick a touchback if we need it. You're just giving up the ball. If we do kick a touchback out of the back of the end zone, now they're getting out to 30 instead of the 25. So that 5 yards makes a big difference. I mean, that's another 3% chance that, you're giving the offense against you to score. So.
What's the evaluation on guys like Justin Reed and
Well, Justin can cover. I mean, he can kick, which he can do, and then he can go down there and make tackles. He's an extra guy that they're probably not accounting for. I mean, they know that guy can go down and tackle, but a guy like Justin is a guy that they have to worry about. You have to get him blocked, and they have to give up blocking somebody else. So, that's the whole thought of that.
Is it something about different kicking styles that might help you out as you're doing this?
It's really, hang time doesn't matter at all now. So hang time is out the door. I mean, you could do it, but doesn't mean anything. But, so now it's about accuracy, seeing what you're getting, how the returners are lined up, and then trying to kick away from them in the corners. But you can't take too much of a risk because if you hit it out of bounds, now you're giving the ball up at the 40. Yeah. If you hit it short of the target zone, you're giving the ball to the 40. So, I mean, there's a fine line between, pushing the limits and the edges, and then, or just going down and saying, hey, we can cover it. We're going to, give them a ball that they can cover, and then get down there with a kicker that can cover. So.
Is there any benefit to touchbacks now at all?
Yeah, there's benefit. I mean, if you're trying to get out of a game, you're up. You know, you don't want to give up a possibility of a turnover. You know, I mean, or a big return against you. You know, you just bang it out of the bat. You just say, hey, we're going to give up the 5 yards and give them the ball at the 30, which Bucker can do. I mean, obviously, you know, he can do touchbacks from the 20, which is going to be important later on, because after a safety, you know, you're kicking from the 20, and we're kicking. Those guys are down on the field. There's no benefit in. So I mean, Bucker will be in. You can use a kicker now after a safety, you can put a kicker in there with a holder.
It's different. How much of your time?
A lot. I mean, I haven't done training camp practices yet, but every day we're going to be working either kickoff or kickoff return. It'll be a portion of every practice. The same thing we're doing now. You know, you still got to work punt return and everything. You know, field goal block. But now we got to just. I don't need more time. I just need to change the schedule a little bit.
Let's go a couple more guys. Aaron,
Yeah.
Pete, Matt, and then you guys. So let's run through. Go ahead.
What have you seen from Matt or Razor? What can you bring to this roster?
Well, I'm going to tell you, both these guys are really good. Both. You know, I mean, Matt is a lefty, you know, and Ryan is a righty, and they're both excellent. They're both NFL punters, and I'm going to tell you, it's a real close battle right now. And, you know, we kick them as much as we can without wearing out their legs. We're practicing everything, the holds, the throws, who can throw better, and we're trying to look at everything to evaluate it. And, you know, the holds are important. You know, Bucker's going to be involved. I'm going to talk to him, you know, who he likes, you know, when it comes time. You know, we don't know when we're going to make that decision, you know, but whether it's before or after, or let him go to a game, not sure yet. Have to talk to Coach Reed, but it's a battle. So both of them give you a lot. Both of them have things that they do well.
Through the lens of the importance of special teams in the NFL.
Say it again.
Through the lens of like the importance of special teams
Yeah.
in the NFL, just how important was this change for the kickoff?
Oh, it's huge for me. It's made me excited about special team. I mean, because those two phases were gone, really. I mean, I didn't work on kickoff because I knew we're just going to kick a touchback. You know, I mean, so all of my time was spent on punt return, field goal block. Now, I mean, this is huge. You know, it's huge it's going to create jobs. You know, for returners, it's going to be important for everybody to figure that out. I mean, they're all figuring that out now. Kickers, cover guys, it's going to be that much more important. Here's an example. Last year, there was 1,970 touchbacks, you know, throughout the league through a 17-game season. Now, we think there's going to be 1,600 more actual football plays. You know, so that's a lot of football, you know, and it's going to be exciting for the fans, you know, and the players they're excited about it too.
How have you seen Lewis Rees-Zammit picking up the special teams side of the game, and Jaden Hicks too? Just how?
Yeah, Lewis has done above and beyond what I expected. I mean, he can kick field goals. I mean, he can kick off you know, he could be a kickoff guy for us. I mean, he's every bit as good as Justin is moving the football and stuff like that on kickoffs, and he's really working hard at the returner job. You know, I got him in there as a starter right now, so he gets as many reps as he can. But he's a student of the game. He comes in after practice. He wants to be great. He's a great athlete. He's just got such a long way to go, football mentally wise. I mean, these guys have been playing since 4th grade, you know, and he hasn't played football until now. So there's a long way to go, you know, with that part of it. But he's on the accelerated program. He's doing well.
Dave, what's the study process to get ready for this kickoff? You mentioned you watch literally every XFL.
Yeah, XFL. We watched all that. That's done now. Now it's about watching us. And every time we practice, we learn something new. You know, like I draw up a play, and it looks great on paper, and you can't do it. Like you can't get the blocks, certain blocks you think you can get to. So you throw it out, and then it's the next thing. You know, we I've been doing this for a long time with the old kickoff return stuff, and it's been over a period of years. Now we're putting in this whole new kickoff, you know, system in an off season. You know, I mean, so it's like, I mean, every day you're learning something new, and you're trying. The team that figures it out, you know, kickoff wise and kickoff return wise, is going to really excel early. You know, we want to be that team.
But you expect it to be replicated, like you expect?
Oh yeah, there's no question. There'll be stuff like, I mean, there's teams that think they could do something right now that they're not going to be able to do. They'll have to throw it out and do something new. We're trying to figure out. We're trying to go through trial and error with all that stuff.
But the hard part will be you can't actually tackle anyone yet.
No, you can't tackle,
Really
but
can't.
we're trying to play. If you watch practice, you see it. We're going as fast as we can possibly go with helmets right now, and our guys do a good job of staying on their feet and trying to, you know, resemble that. So that's all you can do.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, there's Dave Toe, man. That's fascinating. There's a lot to take away from what the difference in the rule for the kickoff is going to be, and not having Harrison Butker out there to be kicking the ball off anymore unless they just want to put it through the back of the end zone and give the other team the ball to the 30. But it's going to be somebody who can go down and tackle. That would be Justin Reed or Reese Zamet.
Funny that Butker might be the third kicker option on kickoffs.
I mean, they want to. What they want to do is get the ball on the ground between the 20 and the goal line, away from the returner, because, XFL, you can start moving once the ball is kicked. In the NFL, the new rule is you can't move until the ball is touched or hits the ground. And so you've got to prioritize accuracy over hang time to have it land within that 20-yard margin from sideline to sideline. Those things have to be done each and every time. And he mentioned that watching every XFL play, over 25% of all of the kick returns, the kicker was involved in some way, shape, or form of the tackle, whether making the tackle or turning the kick returner one way or another, having them change direction. That kicker was involved in a quarter of all the plays.
He said 25 to 40%.
Yeah, 25 to 40% of all of those, which is a wide
margin, but still, at least a quarter. That's insane.
So they want to put somebody back there that is going to be a threat to have to go and tackle. And Justin Reed was talked about in being that. And certainly Luis Rees-Zammit has been talked about as somebody that can do that, can kick field goals, can kick off, is also being put back there as a first-team returner. And he mentioned what the returner has to do. Well, it has to be a running back because that returner also needs to be able to block because there are two returners back there.
Yeah.
And whoever doesn't get the ball now becomes a lead blocker. So if you're not used to blocking in the hole or pass pro as a running back, you may not be great for the kickoff return. So you're putting running backs back there. But also, is that Rees-Zammit? Because how good of a blocker is he when that's not anything that has been his skill in rugby his whole life and pass pro, et cetera. If he's got the ball, well, yes, that's a little rugby-ish when you see that line across the field and him trying to pick a lane. But if he doesn't get the ball, now he becomes a blocker. I worry for the return man if somebody runs right through him or he just whiffs and lays on a block.
I love how excited Dave Tobe sounded. He basically said last year, it's going the way it didn't matter. We never even worked on kickoffs. It's just you kick it out of the end zone. I worked only on punt returns, and that's all we worked on. He sounded excited, and the Chiefs have a advantage, in my opinion, because he is one of the best special team coordinators in all of the NFL, because this puts an emphasis on special team coordinators who can figure out what to do early on. He mentioned that early on, the first half of the season, the first 4 games, whichever team can find something that works early and quickly, they will have such a massive advantage.
Yep.
And Dave Tobe, throughout his career and his tenure in Kansas City, has shown nothing but to be one of the best special teams coordinators. I think the Chiefs have a unique advantage here over other teams.
Hopefully. We'll see if they can
Well,
if they can do
Justin
it.
Reed is a unique advantage.
That is true.
How many teams have legitimate...
Well, the Steelers have Justin Fields.
Who, again, came out and said...
I know, it's a joke.
But it's also like, man, you're the backup quarterback right now. Wouldn't you do anything you could to get onto the field?
Yeah. He said, what did he say? They were making a point of anybody can be on special teams. Even the backup quarterback can be on special teams was really the point, not necessarily that he was going to be kicking off, which, okay, cool point. I mean, you know who's not going to be on special teams? Russell Wilson. I mean, anybody can be on special teams.
Joe Burrow? No.
Nobody's not going to be on.
Can we see if we can
special
finish
teams.
the season first?
Yeah, no, it's probably not going to.
Jaden Daniels? No.
Probably not going to. Anybody can be on special teams. I guess in theory.
Okay, in fairness, Lamar Jackson back there would be so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
You would never do it, but if you want to talk about electric back there, Lamar would be ridiculous.
I'll tell you what. Can you imagine Lamar as like a wide receiver or a kick returner? I mean, I know that they want him to play quarterback.
All right, Bill Polian.
And we'll see what he looks like as a quarterback. But if I'm Lamar, I'm moving to wide receiver because you got a chance to make a real impact in the NFL as wide receiver. As quarterback, maybe you'll be okay, but you won't win more than 2 MVPs.
What about
in your
Tim
career.
Tebow?
All joking aside, though, the Ravens did sign Malik Cunningham? The kid from Louisville that was the quarterback this year.
Yep, Malik.
His position changed on their website to wide receiver.
Yeah.
And he was very hard to tackle last year. In
Yeah.
college.
Just saying.
They've
he's
been
gonna
trying to
be
replicate Lamar
filthy.
Jackson at Louisville for about 10 years now. So they've been trying to find that guy. And Malik was just the latest installment of that. Here's Steve Spagnuolo.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Great. Oh, we got a packed house here. Not pretty much the same faces, some new ones here and there. Good to see everybody. It's nice out there. We're rolling. I forget what number we're on, OTA 6 or something, but it's been great. Looking forward to the next couple of weeks, what we got going on tomorrow, and we'll be back here before you know it, for training camp. With that, I'll open it up.
Trent was talking to us last week. He said that one thing.
Who did?
Said, Trent.
Yeah.
And he said one thing you mentioned was, you had a really good defense coming back. You've been, top 5 in the league, and then you had a rough year. It might have been the last 2 years in New York. I don't know which one.
Yeah, well, I was just sharing with him that I had been through the experience of being way up there, and then the very following next year with a lot of the same guys, we did not play nearly as well, and I don't want to see that happen. Or I'd like to guard against that. So that was the point I was trying to make.
What do you learn from an experience like that?
Well, I mean, a lot of things. I'm not going to open up the book here on all of it, but so I've been doing it for a little bit. I've probably been through all of it, and I've been through that part of it, and that's why I shared it with them. And I felt like it was important to share it with them right away because you got to start building. It's a whole new year. There are no guarantees that we will be the same. No guarantees. I mean, so we got to start working at things the way we did a year ago when we were trying to do that. And I still think we can go higher. I hope we would reach to be higher, but that was kind of the point I made.
Steve, on the subject of cornerback roles and McDuffie, do you sense that he's going to maybe take that Snead outside?
We'll see. I don't think anybody's going to replace L.J. Snead. I thought L.J. had a remarkable year in everything that he did. But there's some shoes there to fill, and whether we do it with one person or two people or shift guys around, we'll see. We got a long way to go to figure that out. We got guys that aren't out there yet. NJ, Jalen. So that's one thing we got to be concerned with.
Who do you like for the slot if he were to do some other?
For the what?
The slot role.
Well, Chamari's been in there right now. Nick Jones has been in there. We got some young guys working in there. Trent can always certainly slide back in. I mean, we haven't put Justin Reed in there, but I'm not so sure if we got in a pinch, in an emergency, we could do that. But it's good to have versatile guys like that.
What do you notice from Shamar? Just as obviously he's got to be grasping so quickly, right?
Yeah.
The way you're moving him around.
Yeah, he's like. Have you guys talked? You haven't talked to him yet, have you? I mean, he's light years ahead of where he was last year, but he's still spinning a little bit. I said this to him today. He's really good when you hone the game plan down and say that we're just doing this. Then he kind of just hones in. But this year 2 for all of those young guys is way better, more advanced. I think he feels more comfortable. He's not real vocal. I don't know how well you guys know him, but and so he needs to do a little bit more of that, especially in the position he's playing, and he's getting there.
For the D line, I know Felix kind of stepped in early last year for Charles when he was suspended, and now it's going to Felix.
Yeah.
Then he's going to have to do the same thing kind of this year.
Yeah.
Just how do you see him?
Yeah, Felix has done a really nice job. I mean, I'd say the same. We were just talking about Chamara. They're in the same year, right? Second year. I think Felix is on the same trajectory. It was all new last year. Everything, right? You're playing in your hometown, all that. We talked about it a lot, and so I think he's kind of figured a lot of those things out. And I think on the field, it shows up. He's more comfortable with the guys. The guys are more comfortable with him. He battled. Remember last year he had some nicks and he had I don't know, it was a groin or something. But for a long time there, he was. I think even during this time, I'm not sure we had him until training camp.
Right. Yeah, because he had.
Yeah. So he didn't even have the benefit of these OTAs. So hopefully that sends him on a.
Are the OTAs really that big?
I feel that way. I mean, listen, I'm a big believer, especially on our side of the football, that you got to play with some football intelligence. You don't have to be a rocket science. You don't have to go to Stanford like Jay Reed did, or to Harvard like Truman. By the way, he's pretty sharp. I can see why he went to Harvard. But you got to be football smart, and I think that's important in what we do now. And so the quicker those guys pick that up, the better off I think we are. I think our unit goes like that.
Oh,
And I'm sorry,
we got
Steve.
a couple more. Let's go ahead on, and then we'll...
Steve,
Yeah.
What have you seen from him so far? Understanding that it's still real.
Yeah. We had him in that first rookie camp, the first thing that stuck out, he's not afraid to be loud. Like I like those guys. They come right in and they got a voice.
What have you seen from him so far? Understanding that it's still real.
Yeah. When we had him in that first rookie camp, the first thing that stuck out, he's not afraid to be loud. Like I like those guys. You know, they come right in and they got a voice to them. So now he doesn't know everything yet, and it's a little bit different. He made a couple of mistakes today, but I think he's got some self-confidence about him, which you need at that position. We'll see where he is in terms of talent, and is it good enough to play at this level? We'll find that out training camp.
Steve, the same thing with Hicks. What have you seen out of him? I saw you doing some personal time with him.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, my guess is if you had an opportunity to talk to Jaden, he'd tell you that it's like, whoa. You know, like, now, in his defense, he's playing both safety positions. We put him down at dime. You know, we've got him all over the place. But it's a compliment to him. I think he's got some skills where he can play a lot of different. We'll find out where that is. But he's got a lot of catching up to do. He made a really good play today. I don't know if you guys saw it down toward the red zone toward the end of practice, which I thought was really good. But I like him. He's not there yet with being real vocal and like our safeties need to be because he just doesn't know it yet. But I think he'll be okay.
What do you appreciate about the White House visit? Obviously not the first time, but maybe the second time offers an opportunity to maybe slow some things down and get to enjoy the experience.
I don't know. I always enjoy going. It's like, and I've seen it, and I've been through there, so that part of it's. But I think every time I've gone, I see something different, and whether it's a picture or a painting. And I will say this: the people there. This was like the last time we went, that are in and around and kind of talk about. They're great. Like you try to grab one of them, they're like your own guide, right? Yeah, and I've never done it, but you know those things that they used to have. You put the earpieces in, you go around to the. I used to think that was pretty cool. Like, I was a little nerdy when I was going around. But there's people there that will say, you know, this, and I think that's intriguing. So I always find something good about it.
Steve, based on your experience, being a head coach previously, obviously being a coordinator for all these years, there's obviously a report through the Player Association that they may want to, or I guess, going to send a proposal to the league to alter the off-season scheduling, right?
I heard you. Yeah.
I just wonder, from your perspective, could that work? What would be sort of the
I don't know
benefits and the negatives?
I'm not sure exactly what they were talking about. The only thing I thought I heard was going sooner. Or
Yes.
not having OTAs, but having.
Basically having it in June and July. Yeah.
Longer training.
Yeah, I'm a vacation guy. I like getting vacation. Just off the top of my head, now I have grown children and all that, but for guys with little kids and trying to have it coordinated with when the kids are off, I think that would take away from that. That was the only thing I could think of. But I just wherever they tell us to go, I'll go.
Hey Steve, we've seen Kelvin Joseph out there a bunch. What are your impressions of him?
Yeah, well, early on, I couldn't get a real good feel. He's kind of quiet and all that, but he's made some plays. I think if you were to ask our players, they're getting a little bit more confidence in him. He's been playing with the first group and a couple of reps there. He's made some plays for us. Made an interception a couple days ago here in the red zone. Long way to go, but there's hope there. He's working well with the guys.
Just generally speaking, I can't remember every practice. You probably just don't remember it all either, but it seems like there's some pretty good spirits in John, kind of back and forth.
Yeah, there was today.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was today. The only thing I would say about that is, you love the competition, you love all that, but there's a guy in a yellow jersey. We can't press. You can't put your hands on receivers. You can't chuck anybody. So it's a little tilted. That's just me. I love it. I see Pacheco. He was out there.
Oh yeah.
I love that, and I think the guys like it too. It keeps it enjoyable. Is that it?
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
All right, there's vacation guy Steve Spagnuolo being asked about a lot of different things there. Jaden Hicks and Kamal Haddon and FAU and Shamari Connor in the slot and Trent McDuffie and who's taking over for LJ Snead, et cetera, et cetera. But on the OTAs and the different off-season calendar, I'm a vacation guy. So that's funny from Steve Spagnuolo. Matt Nagy is going to be entering the room here pretty quickly.
Kelvin Joseph was a surprise
how
name
about
to
that?
hear. With the ones he said occasionally.
Right, reserve future contract earlier this year. Here's Matt Nagy.
It seemed like he was pretty involved in what you guys were doing today. I just wondered what you can still learn about him on days like this.
A lot of mental. I think I know discussing it with you guys last year with Rasheed and kind of going through the process. We throw a lot to these guys in practice mentally. So right now the biggest thing is for him to understand what we do offensively, and then not just one position, but all the positions. So I think for him, it's really valuable for him to be able to tell me while we're standing there in practice where he's supposed to go and what he's supposed to do, more so than the physical routes. It's been really good for him. He's been great.
What are the traits you're looking for in a third running back as you decide?
Yeah, somebody that can obviously run the football, but also catch the football and be good in protection. Kind of a microcosm of what that position is. When you have that third spot there, you want somebody that can truly be able to know where they're supposed to go in protection. That's always very important for us as coaches, for the quarterbacks, making sure you're in sync with the linemen and tight ends. So that part's huge. But at the same time, making plays too, and there's going to be a great healthy competition, which there always is, and that'll be important. And I think you really won't truly see that until training camp.
Matt, Travis Kelce mentioned in this podcast that Andy Reid came with 100 new plays. I don't know exactly how accurate that number is with 100, but that you always do have an evolution of this offense.
Yeah.
Just the exciting way that you guys are trying to evolve the offense with something that works to continue trying to make it different.
Yeah, that's always been a staple of Coach Reid, and Kels is now, year 13? And so he's been through like 1,300 plays every offseason through coach and the new plays he puts in. But that's kind of, I think, what's fun about the offseason process is doing that. You keep those vets, keep their minds thinking. And so whether it's a new play or whether it's something that we want to experiment with maybe it's an older play, we'll do the same thing. But it keeps these guys not just going through the motions, but also trying to stay great at the foundation of the offense.
Matt, how much of your offseason evaluation was focused on the deep passing game and trying to improve there?
There was quite a bit. It's a unique question because we always try to go into every year with that mindset and that thought. And so you want to have the initiative to be able to be great at that and practice it from day one. We've had some success here early on. We got to keep it going. But it is a mindset. And then you pair that with what the defenses are going to give you. I think we've seen kind of an evolution of not just against the Chiefs in recent years, but also in the NFL in general, the deep shots aren't there as much. So just having that balance of being able to still have that touchdown, the check down mentality, but be smart with when we do take those shots.
How do you get the best out of Kadarius Toney this year?
The biggest thing is going to be making sure that we understand now. He understands the foundation mentally of where to go, where to line up. That's a big part of the process. Then the next part of the process is just making the simple plays be simple. He's so talented. And we as coaches then need to be able to put him in the right spot to not overdo it with him, but let him kind of go into this and just let things play out. Because when he has the ball in his hands, he's special. But it's gonna timing is important, and you want to make sure. I think when you get in training camp, you put the pads on, you build that relationship with the quarterbacks. That's going to be key.
Every offseason, it seems like there's a point of emphasis for Pat. Just in general, what are you guys trying to zone in on this summer?
Well, I'll start off by just saying any new receiver timing, always. So that's so key to get that down now so that when we get in training camp, you hammer that down. And then I think like for Pat, it's probably, we always talk about matching his eyes with his feet. We always talk about being smart in situational football, third down and in the red zone, protecting the football. And I thought he did a really good job of that last year in that area. So this year we're really trying to go back to making sure that if there's been plays where his feet has had, for instance, if there's a play where he has a 3-step or 5-step from the gun and he's been kind of mixing it up with his feet, we want to maybe get back to, hey, let's go back to trying it on 3-step ball out versus is it 5, is it 3, and then work to the 5-step afterwards. So it's without getting too crazy into the minutia of it, it's something that we're working on footwork-wise with him, which I think is great for him.
Last 4, Adam, Nate, Todd, PJ.
Hey, Matt, now that you've had a chance to coach Carson Wentz for a couple months, is there something maybe you've learned, some things you've learned about him that maybe you didn't know going into this?
I've never had the experience to really interact with him, on the field or off the field. Just there's been the family tree of people that have coached him that I've heard, and I've always heard great things about how much of a true professional he is. I remember years ago when he came in here as a young quarterback and played here in Kansas City, and just remembering how big he was size-wise, physically, then matching it up with his arm talent, being able to move, and then you take that now in his career, his experience. And so he's come in here, and I think it's probably for the first time more of a unique role to him where he comes in and knows that he's coming in as a backup. So that takes, there's a professionalism to that of understanding that, but then also not taking all the stuff you've done in your career and trying to come in here and say, well, this is how I've done it this way or that way. He's been phenomenal with just coming in and learning what we do. He's been great with Pat. And then on the field, I think his accuracy's been really good. So it's been impressive where he's at in this short amount of time.
When you say he's been great with Pat, can you elaborate on that?
Just in the meeting rooms, I think when guys like him, veteran guys, come in, it's their first time kind of learning the system. There's more about the ears and listening and just getting a feel for how, Pat does things and how we do things, and then implementing when the time is right. He's done a great job with that. And then we get to the practice field or get on the field, and he's taking the plays that he's learning that are new, and in my opinion, he's getting the ball out on time and in rhythm faster than most people would learning this offense. So I think mentally he's really taking it in, and he's very accurate with not always knowing where to go.
Nate?
I have two topics. The first one is just where you all right now with the evaluation of Kingsley and Wanye, and obviously we saw Wanye kind of slide to both positions.
Sure.
Inside and outside set.
Yeah, it's definitely a moving process. Things are just like for wide receivers at the rookie position, things can go fast. There's new protection calls for Kingsley. Understanding how we do things, techniques and fundamentals can be, very different. So I think they're doing a good job right now. I'm always excited to get to training camp and see what it's like when the pads come on. This essentially becomes a passing camp usually, so there's not many runs. So most of the time it's advantage defense to be honest, because there's a lot of passes. So when we get to the run blocking, when we get to the play actions, et cetera, that are real, I'm excited to see where he's at. The same with Wanye. I know and got to see what he did last year. He has the mentality. It's, again, piecing it now, knowing that this is a competition to come in here and compete. But technique-wise, mentally right now they're doing great. They got to put it together both mentally and physically in training camp.
And then secondly, with I don't know if you saw it, but with the Player Association potentially putting a proposal that would push the off-season program to either, I guess, mid-June, early July, just how unusual would that be, and how different would it be as a former head coach, obviously a coordinator, to try to get things organized when you're starting obviously later than April?
Yeah, I and we always joke as coaches, as coaches, we're all creatures of habit, so you get used to these schedules. But at the same point in time, I think you realize that this league is always looking to evolve and adapt to do what's most efficient. So I heard that as well. I didn't see or read any articles, but I've heard people talk. Whatever they end up coming up with, we'll adjust to. And I think that's part of the process is they'll be creative with it. And whatever it is, hopefully it's beneficial to everybody. And however we work with that, Coach Reed will be great with the schedules. And I don't know when that gets put into place, but I'm sure there's a reason behind it. And I would support whatever it is. And you got to adapt in this league. So if you can't adapt, you won't survive.
One of those things you guys did last year was you have a fullback.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you just look at 42 out there, and it's because it's 42. It says RB on the roster. But
Yeah.
Are you guys like how everything went last year, using the position that way, or are you considering more of a fullback?
I think it's probably to be determined yet. We're not against it. We obviously didn't do it last year. We've done it in the past. I'm sure probably like most rosters in the NFL, a lot of that has to do with special teams, that position, and how you use that. And then this new rule with the kickoff return and kickoff, like roster-wise, how are you going to use guys? But if Coach Reed and our offense decides to go that way, then we'll take a look at that. He's done a great job in that. But again, this being a passing camp, there's not a lot of fullback formations that we're using right now.
Last one really quick.
Yep.
It seems that like Nico Remedio's kind of been on the brink the past couple of training camps. What's it going to take for him just to break that glass ceiling?
Keep doing what he's doing. I was so proud of him last year. It was unfortunate for him to get hurt like he did, but Nico is a prime example of an undrafted free agent that comes in, is a absolute true professional every day in the meeting rooms, every day at practice. It's the same speed, It's the same mentality, and you root for guys like that. You're bringing his name up. Obviously, he's showing up, and you see that. Again, guys like him, they find a role as well, and they got to make an impact on special teams. So I'm rooting for him. I think he's a great kid, and could be a fun story.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
All right, take care. Yeah.
All right, there's offensive coordinator Matt Nagy talking about the offensive line and who the third running back will be, or at least what they're looking for, the deep passing game.
Jerry mentioned
Fullback.
Wanye Morris, not just a tackle. He said inside and out.
Inside and outside, yeah. Looking probably to get your best 5 offensive linemen out there, but we'll see. I mean, if it'll be Kingsley and Wanya, but we would think maybe Donovan Smith. He was asked about Kadarius Toney, which we can weigh in on a little bit later. But here's Dave Merritt.
Get another chance to start molding. Yeah, I tell you, first of all, the kid, Nix, I call him all kinds of names. I tell him all the time, I say, you know what, you are the prototype safety. He has the body, the size, the mental to be able to be a really good football player in this league. And so, but then of course, Kamal is another long athletic corner. He reminds me of Rashard Breeland, to be honest with you. And so, very physical guy. And so, but having these two guys, they're just like Dory. They're just swimming right now. Just keep swimming. I mean, they are just, I mean, it is overloading them mentally. But they're just, it's happy to have, happy to have these guys in the room, and just so thrilled that you have fresh blood in there, and you're trying to teach and you're trying to mold another young mind to become what they want to become. So it's been great.
When you start to prepare to try to replace L'Jarius Sneed, how difficult is that task, and how do you see that maybe playing out?
Yeah, I don't think you can. It's almost like trying to replace Michael Jordan. And I'm not comparing him to Michael Jordan, but that type of skill set that L.J. Sneed had was his skill set, the physicality, the ability to be able to lock down a wide receiver. That's hard to replace. But at the same time, you have other young men who have skill sets that they're going to be able to step up and be able to showcase. And hopefully these young men can go out and just learn something from what LJ had in his game, and just add a little bit of that into their game. But it's hard to replace a player like that.
How ready is McDuffie potentially for that role, or will he more so be in the mix?
Well, I mean, McDuffie, last year he was first-team All-Pro. So he doesn't need to do anything. He doesn't need to try to become an L.J. Sneed. And so I think Trent is going to do well with his role and what he's been doing.
And Dave, Calvin Joseph, we've seen him a lot out there.
Yep.
Just some early impressions.
Yep. Calvin is another young man. He has a lot of quick twitch. He's learning the defense, but he's just like a rookie. He's swimming just like the other guys because there's a lot thrown at him. This system here, as I've said before in the past, if you can learn this system, you'll be able to go and play in probably 95% of the other systems in the NFL. But it's just so much because we open up our entire playbook to these young men. So hopefully he's going to be able to step up, step in, and be able to accomplish the things that we want him to accomplish when it comes to everything.
Last two, Adam and Todd.
Dave, you were talking a minute ago about
Yes.
Haddon, and you said he reminds you of Breeland a little bit. Is
Yep.
it just the size and the physical nature of his play, or are there other?
Even his mentality, just his mentality and how he comes off, and just Breeland always wanted to know some of the little details so he can get better, and Haddon has that type of personality, and it's more so, it is what you just said, it's more so the size and the physicality, and so I'm excited to get my hands on him.
Last year we talked to you about your goals.
Yep.
And you said, you didn't want to go be a coordinator when some kids were all
Right.
And you had a job interview
Yep.
elsewhere. Take us
Yep.
through kind of your off season and what you went through there and what you learned from it. Where
Yeah.
you want to go now?
I mean, what I heard was I heard my own voice coming back to basically kick me in my own tush. I said that in front of you guys, and then all of a sudden the 49ers interview me. I think what I learned from that is you got to stay ready. You always have to stay ready, and you never know when that time is going to come. And so, but for my wife and I, when that opportunity came about, I talked to her, and one of the things that she did was she was going to support me. And she said, baby, the kids are not in the house anyway waiting on you to come home. You know, it's not like when they were young. And so she basically gave me the thumbs up. And so I still have a 16-year-old daughter that I am trying to be a father to. And I think that's hard when you leave, and especially young ladies. To have a father around, I think that's very important. So that is still my goal. And so I want to be there for her. And so she's going to be a junior this year. And so I want to be around for her.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Interesting there from Dave Merritt, because he did say that as long as the kids were in the house and going to high school, that he wasn't looking for defensive coordinator jobs. And he said, what did the offseason happen? What I heard was my own voice kicking me in the butt, because all of a sudden I say that, and then the 49ers are wanting to interview me for the coordinator position. But
not many better jobs than that, too, by the way.
Right, but finding out now, it wasn't just a sort of cursory, like, oh, let me do this interview so I'll know what to expect when I actually want the job. That, no, he got his wife's blessing that he got the job. He'd be the 49ers defensive coordinator right now. So that's interesting, something to keep in mind. Here's Andy Heck.
Played in the NFL. Can you take us back to what it was like to be a rookie trying to learn, obviously wanting to start early, and how that may inform how you coach someone like Kingsley?
When I came into the league, I was coming from a wishbone offense where we averaged 6 throws a game, and there would have been a naked type of thing. So I was had my hands full learning how to pass protect. You take our rookies today, Kingsley coming from a throwing offense, a spread offense. They're much better developed in that regard. So, a lot of it is just, hey, let's learn our terminology, let's learn our calls, our concepts, and then, everything else in between. There's a lot, but we tell them, look, we're not going to build Rome in a day here. We'll do it day by day, and we've got these various phases, mini camp and training camp, a lot of time to get this done.
How is that left tackle position kind of shaping out for you right now? Because we've obviously Wanye in there, Wanye inside today, and then Chu is at left tackle today. How is that all looking to you?
Well, I feel very good about the talent that we have here on this team, on the roster now, to create some good competition there. I mean, you have guys who have played in games like Wanye and Lucas Nyang. Chu is an exciting developmental guy, and he's been doing very, very well this spring, and so we wanted to give him a look out there. That'll be a work in progress. We're going to give a lot of guys some looks there. Kingsley, certainly. Ethan Driscoll, one of our young guys. So I feel good about the tackle depth that we have here to create some good competition.
How legitimately open, because I know that Morris and Sumateia have been talked about as potential left tackles, but how wide open maybe is the left tackle position?
Yeah, well, certainly those two young men should come to mind as probably having a leg up in that competition, but I'd say it's wide open. I mean, we're going to look and work hard to put our best 5 on the field. Whoever can get that job done and show that they can do it day in and day out through a 20-game season, that's going to be important.
What are you seeing from Juwan right now? He had a rough start to the year last year with the penalties and all that. It looked like he kind of cleaned a lot of those things up. What do you expect with him year 2 with you guys, and how you do it?
Free agency is a good thing, I think, for this league, and it's a good thing for our players. But, and I personally experienced this as a young free agent changing teams. I think that first year we've seen it with several guys, you think back to Orlando's first year here. It takes a year. You're getting moved, you're learning a new town, new terminology, techniques. I think it can kind of take a year to find your groove. Doesn't have to, but I think it typically does. So my expectation would be that JT is going to pick up where he left off, having cleaned some of those things up, be that much further along without, being in the midst of a transition.
Last one, PJ.
We don't see Joe Tooney right now. We know he's still recovering from that pec injury. Can you tell us where he's at right now and how he's doing?
Yeah, I don't know where he's at in terms of his rehab, other than he's doing very well. He is here every day, diligently working on that. He's in our meetings, provides great leadership in our meetings, excellent veteran voice in there, good teacher, which you would expect from such a good player. So we're looking forward to getting him back. I don't know when that is.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
All right, there's Andy Heck, offensive line coach, and one more to go with the assistant coaches. and that would be tight ends coach Tom Melvin will be next up. But wide open left tackle competition, saying that Wanya and Kingsley, those certainly would be those two have a leg up in that, but it's going to be a wide open competition, and they're going to put their best 5 out there. So he said, Chu was getting some look at left tackle, but as he said, that's more of a development thing that we're trying to get everybody some reps. But getting Kingsley, Driscoll, Wanya, Niang, all reps there to play.
What he said with Juwan Taylor was interesting because I think you could also make the same case, and that means Wanya Morris.
Yep.
If it takes a year to get your feet wet, in which I have said perpetually, especially at tackles from college to the NFL, I think it's the hardest transition. Well, then, to me, you would expect Wanya Morris to have a leg up on Kingsley Suamataia.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to sway anyone's thoughts one way or the other, but that's how
Are
I
you trying
feel.
to sway Andy Hex and Andy Reid's thoughts?
No,
Then listening right now that you're trying to get Wanya Morris to start.
I think Wanya Morris is going to take a larger step forward than people realize. I think
Hopefully.
tackle is the hardest position to transition from college to the NFL. I do agree with Andy Heck, and year 2 is the year that I think you can really start to see those improvements.
That was interesting about the free agency, sort of finding your groove, new town, new system, new everything, and then that spotlight immediately put on him in game number 1, playing for the Chiefs, different than playing with the Jags. But game number 1, Chris Collinsworth. I mean, this guy in lining up off sides, and he's not even on the line. And then everybody focusing on that. We'll see what Juwan Taylor looks like this year. Here's Tom Melvin, tight ends coach.
Rookie tight end. Looks the part. What have you seen from him so far?
It's been nice. It's we've got a lot in. We're throwing a lot at all these guys, and he's done a very good job assimilating to what we call things. He's similar offense, so it's not really that foreign. The volume is, and he's done a nice job doing that. And he's playing a little bit faster every day we go. So it's good to see. He's got a long way to go, but we're encouraged with where he's at and what he's been doing.
You mentioned to us that he's had a lot of offensive coordinators and
all
that stuff. So this is not new for him to try to learn something.
Yeah, that the expectation of him having to come in, understand a new language, understand what somebody's asking him to do the same thing, but calling it something different. So I guess you could look at it that it benefits him as far as him having to do it that way, and then but he's handling it well. We're encouraged with that.
I know it's early, but just how do you see the rotation with Wiley and Kelsey and Gray and then Irv?
We got no clue. You can't until they put pads on. I mean, guys look different with shorts until they go. All the guys, I was just saying, Irv is really a smart, instinctual guy, and that's showing out there. He's doing things that a vet would do, where the rookies would run into a wall, whereas he's pulling up and in front. So I like what he gives us, and then. The rookies are doing their thing, so we got a long way to go, and we're just happy when guys, kind of flash on you. Ooh, he's got that. So that it's better than going, he can't do that, And we're seeing more of the positive parts right now.
Over the past year, it kind of seems like Travis Kelce's off the field celebrity has grown to very high at this point. You've been with him since 13. What is it like, in your eyes, kind of just seeing what he's become from a national standpoint on and not really off the field?
Well, there certainly is quite a bit more now than when he started. Social media has changed quite a bit since he started. It's good to see him and his brother talking every week. I'd say that's probably the number one thing that now they are, communicating every week, whereas during the season it was a little harder for them to talk and catch up. So, that's a great thing. I think it's phenomenal. And for Trav, he's been in the league long enough to where, these off season, it's more for him just go away and go do that stuff. We'll worry about it when you come back. So it's a positive for him because he needs something to keep himself busy. He's somebody that needs a lot going on. So he handles it real well.
There's Tom Melvin, the tight ends coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll take a timeout, come back, and wrap up the show coming up next. Anthony Bowman at 6 o'clock. And then, of course, the Western Conference Finals, game number 5 in Minnesota. Mavericks leading 3-1 in that series. And apparently, Ant-Man asked Micah Parsons what his shoe size was when leaving the arena in game number 4. Said, when we come back here, I'll bring you a pair of shoes. Saying,
that's badass.
We're coming back to Dallas.
I mean, it's not going to happen because Kyrie Irving's going to be too clutch from the fourth
Probably,
quarter.
yeah,
but,
for sure.
Real,
for sure.
Cool thing to say.
But it was
that's a Jordan thing to say.
Right.
That's a Larry Bird thing to say.
Micah, what's your shoe size? Cool. I'm going to bring you a pair when we come back for Game 6. See you then. We'll get out of here. Hand it over to the program with Srin Petro next.